Florida, baseball heaven away from baseball heaven. Palm trees, sunny skies, most importantly, Cardinals baseball. Pitchers and catchers reported just after Valentine's Day, and love of baseball has been in the air at Roger Dean Stadium as Cardinals past, present, and future have been hard at work preparing for the 2010 season. Hello everyone, and welcome to Spring Training 2010 and Roger Dean Stadium. I'm Pat Paris, and welcome as well to the Cardinals Spring Training Report on Fox Sports Midwest. Roger Dean Stadium in Jupiter has been the home of the Cardinals since 1998, and it's the home for this Spring Training special. Coming up, Jim Hayes goes one-on-one with the best player and one of the best pitchers in baseball. Also, see the Cardinals' new hitting coach in action as Mark McGwire wore a microphone exclusively for Fox Sports Midwest.
It's a little bit stronger with your base skip.
And we'll examine the fifth starter role and take a closer look at what to expect from Ryan Franklin this season. But we begin in the middle of the Cardinal batting order. Cardinal Nation breathed a sigh of relief back on January 6th when the Cards and Matt Holliday agreed to a new 7-year, $120 million contract. Right now, our Jim Hayes goes one-on-one with the Cardinal cleanup hitter.
Kind of a relief that the financial part's over and you know where your future is going to be here in St. Louis. Is feeling a relief and chance to settle in. Is that the way you look at it?
Yeah, you know, it's exciting to kind of know where I'm going to be for a long time, hopefully for the rest of my career, and it's a good feeling, kind of knowing, at least having an idea of what the next 7 or 8 years look like.
Aside from the financial part of the deal, but what was it about the Cardinals and the team that's in place here that made you want to be part of it?
I think the enthusiasm for baseball in the city and the atmosphere, chance to win on a consistent basis. I already knew what a great bunch of guys were there, and so I think the combination of all those things made it the ideal situation for me, and I'm glad it worked out.
The way the season ended, we ask all the players, but take a little time to get past that, or do you look at it as, just something that happens in baseball?
We didn't play as well as we were playing for so long. We played so well for such a long period of time. We kind of hit a lull, and we just didn't play well enough to win. And so, yeah, it's frustrating, but at the same time, you use it as motivation in the offseason, train hard. We have a great team and an opportunity to go out and win games and hopefully get another chance at the playoffs. And hopefully this time we'll be playing better baseball, and, we'll be able to get in, and then once you're in, you play well, you got a chance to win it.
Kind of a new team still for you, but having been here last year, spring training, does it feel comfortable for you because you know everyone?
Yeah, it's actually been much more comfortable, having a chance to spend quite a bit of time with these guys. And obviously I've never been down here, but I think it's a good feeling knowing, got some friends and some guys, and so it's been pretty comfortable.
Last thing, the fact that you're back and the team is essentially intact from last year, do you look at this as an opportunity to take care of some business that you guys couldn't quite do last year?
Yeah, I think, as players, you're looking for an opportunity to compete and have a chance to make it into the postseason. And like I said, you have to get hot and play well in the postseason to win it all. But I think we definitely have the team to play well over the long haul. Obviously, it's a long season, and I think, with our rotation and our lineup, we should be able to.
So Matt Holliday will be a fixture in left field for years to come. St. Louis and David Freese is looking to do the same at third base. Jim Hayes has more.
David Freese is so close, he can taste it.
I'm about as close as it's ever been. It's I think it's mine to grab.
Freese, a St. Louisan, actually grabbed the job last year. He made the Cardinals out of spring training and would have been the opening day third baseman, subbing for the injured Troy Gloss, if not for an ankle injury of his own. Freese would be optioned to Memphis and had surgery about 6 weeks later. He returned to the Cards in September and went 7 for 12 with the big club. This year, he plans on sticking.
My determination and focus is as high as it's ever been, and with that brings confidence. I have a lot of confidence. I know there's a lot of guys battling for it because everybody wants to be in the big leagues, but I think I got what it takes to show them that I'm ready.
There was a bump in the road in the offseason. Freese was arrested back in December outside St. Louis on drunk driving charges.
It was embarrassing, humiliating, and I can I can take care of myself, but the thing that got to me most was how I embarrassed the organization. It was that simple. Everything's looking good now.
His commitment this offseason after he dealt with the problems off the field has been extraordinary, and we just have a lot of faith that he can get this going.
Freese was raised in St. Louis and is a product of Lafayette High School. Being the hometown kid might make for additional pressure for some, but not for Freese.
I think that there's more excitement because I have a lot of friends and family at home that are rooting for me, and I want to succeed because I know they get a kick out of watching me, and everyone that I know has grown up a Cardinals fan. So if I can get out there and be that player at the hot corner for years to come, that's just going to be awesome.
Yes, Freese can taste it, but he knows there's still lots of work to do.
I don't want it any other way. But when I come here to spring training, I don't want it to be handed to me, and that's not going to be the case. I want to earn it. I want to gain the respect of the management and the coaches and the players that I have earned it.
For the Cardinals Spring Training Report, I'm Jim Hayes.
Still much more to come on the Cardinals Spring Training Report. Later, Big Mac mic'd up. But coming up next, a look at the front and back of the rotation. Back in Jupiter, Florida, this is the Cardinals Spring Training Report. Welcome inside Roger Dean Stadium now. For the Cardinals, very few questions here in spring 2010, but one of them involves the fifth starter. Who will it be? Former Cub Rich Hill is a leading candidate, but he's only appeared in 19 games over the last 2 seasons because of elbow and shoulder injuries. But he's healthy now, and the lefty is hoping to land that number 5 starter job.
I feel that I'm better than I was in the past. Everything has really been enhanced. The curveball I feel is better than it has been. I'm throwing a 2-seam fastball now. It's coming out excellent. Changeup is great, and everything is just it's got a different kind of life on it than it did in the past.
So the back end of the Cardinals rotation is a bit of a question mark, but the top of the rotation is not. Although a year ago, you'll remember, we didn't know what to expect from Chris Carpenter. What we got was a season that saw Chris Carpenter finish second in the NL Cy Young race. Jim Hayes now goes one-on-one with the Cards ace.
Are the preparations the same for you season after season, or are you trying something new, or are you always looking at maybe a different way to get an edge?
Yeah, I'm always trying to get better, and I feel like working hard in the winter gives you a chance to be stronger, and I always try to find different ways to get in shape and try to make myself a little better, and I feel good this spring. I'm excited about the club. I'm excited about the guys in the team. I'm excited about the way I feel, and I'm looking forward to a nice spring.
How much different is this spring training for you than last, because there aren't these giant question marks surrounding the name Chris Carpenter?
It's exciting. I've been excited for a few months now to get down here and get going. Where in the last few years that excitement wasn't there because of the injuries.
Does this kind of turn the clock back for you to spring trainings when you were younger and health was never an issue?
Yeah, definitely. I just got done talking to a few guys in there. It's brought a new energy that I haven't had fully. I mean, I've always had it, but I haven't had it fully like I do right now about coming down and getting ready to go. Only because, like I said, the injuries and not knowing and not being able to be a part of the team at times. But I know that this year I'm healthy. I finished the season strong. I had a great off season. And I'm healthy and strong now, so I'm looking forward to it.
The starting rotation will have a little bit of a different look. Guys that we've seen here before, Wellemeyer, Pinheiro, have gone elsewhere. But to bring in a Brad Penny, to have Loesch back healthy, hopefully those injuries, those freakish things happen behind him. Just your thoughts on the rotation.
You look at us on paper, it looks nice, but you still got to go out and compete and execute and stay healthy. So, it's exciting to have this group of guys here. Losing Joel and Todd is unfortunate, but that's the way baseball goes. And bringing in an established guy like Brad that, every time he takes the ball, he's got a chance to dominate. There's no question about that. He's done it in the past. So it's going to be fun to watch him go out and work every 5th day.
Tony was talking about great team on paper, but he says we start from zero, and that message has to be instilled to the players. I understand that you understand that message. How much of a role do you have in terms of making sure that everyone in the clubhouse, from a player perspective, understands that you are starting at zero?
Yeah, I think everybody does. That's the way our team looks at it. We got the same group of guys. I mean, who's new? I think Brad's a new guy. There's not many guys that are new on this club, so everybody in here knows what it takes, knows what Tony expects, knows what the organization expects, and knows where we start and where we come from, and what we need to do to go out and be successful and get to where we want to get. And it starts from today, and it's doing the little things. It's working hard every day, and it's playing the games. So we'll see what happens.
Plenty more ahead on the Cardinals spring training report. Coming up next, Mark McGwire mic'd up and one-on-one with baseball's best player. Back here at Roger Dean Stadium, the Cardinals spring training facility. They once shared it with the Montreal Expos, but now it is the Florida Marlins. The baseball world surprised back in October when the Cardinals announced Mark McGwire would be their new hitting coach. Now, despite an offseason of questions surrounding Big Mac, manager Tony La Russa thinks he'll be an excellent coach.
If it's clear to them if you're there for you, you lose them. And I don't care what kind of career you had. That's why some stars, they even haven't been able to work, or they don't understand how important it is for the player to know that you're there for them. And I've seen Mark say that. That's what our whole situation is based on. I don't care if it's our training staff, our equipment staff, the manager, the coaches. We're here to help players play as well as they can and our team win games.
Earlier this spring, the Cards' new hitting coach was mic'd up and took Fox Sports Midwest exclusively inside a Cardinals workout.
Who wants to go? Who wants this hit? Who wants to hit? Who's hungry? Who's hungry? Let's go. You feel good swinging?
All right.
Yeah?
Still working on it.
Okay. So don't ask me anything you want, man. We'll get in the cage and do some things. I'm here for you guys, so it's like pick into my brain as much as you want.
Okay.
Wow. A little bit stronger with your base skip. Nicely done. Get him in, baby. All right, we'll do another one. Make sure it's your pitch. All right, I'll take that one. You know, most people think this is, you gotta hit, it's like, this is great, but whoo, you know how much more energy you got? Get him in. All right, do another one. Well, we're in the cage. Hands, just think your hands. Okay. Huh? Yeah, go. No, let's do another 10. Okay. It was just like, you weren't leaning with your body, just your hands weren't doing anything, okay? And a couple times you did it, but just think it. I mean, if you think you're gonna move it 10 inches, feel like you're doing it, it's not gonna happen, but just get it going, you'll start seeing the clearance like we did. Remember we talked about yesterday with the eye?
Yeah.
Just really concentrate on seeing the ball, that left eye, all the way to the bat. Because it's like the first couple of your, first. Oh yeah. So if your dominant eye is going here, okay. So when you keep this thing still and you're concentrating on that left eye, everything else is going to be still.
Like there, you're more farther apart than when you're hitting fumbles.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's farther apart than what I
Yeah, you're. No, there's no stability. Stability. Be able to do anything you want. Like I was telling you yesterday, is that people don't understand is, it's thousands of muscle strands that hold your eyes into place, and so when people think their eyes get tired, it's their muscles that hold their eyes get tired.
Right.
So it's like they all get lazy. So by doing those exercises, you're actually strengthening the muscles. It's the same thing like going and working out.
Control them,
yeah. Well, I get to hit ground balls again now.
Yep.
See, David. Well, see, I used to hit ground balls all the time when I was in Oakland.
Fine.
Well, it just taught me how to drive down on the ball.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things, and I broke Tony Phillips' hand one year. You don't want me? They said they want me. You. All right, you go. Oh, they talked I was hitting you too hard?
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You guys, you really don't want me? You want O? You're breaking my heart right away?
Nobody is going to save me now.
Great stuff from Big Mac. One player whose swing he will not be tinkering with, Albert Pujols, who picked up his second straight National League MVP award this fall, 3rd overall. Jim Hayes goes one-on-one now with the Cardinals franchise player.
So much promise to push deep into the postseason, maybe the World Series. How did you respond to that? How long did it take you to bounce back?
Well, it took that whole month or two, bro. I mean, sitting on the couch watching the other guys playing, you know, knowing that if it was, you know, that could have been us playing out there, you know, in the NLCS, if it would have been the Dodgers, or that could have been us in the World Series. So, I mean, those are things that bother you. But you know what? That was last year. Now we are a different team, and we just need to get ourselves ready, hopefully, to get to the postseason and put ourselves in a position, hopefully, to be in the World Series.
This might be a dumb question coming from me. You're not surprised, but is there a lesson to be learned for this season from last season, or is it a totally different thing?
What's the lesson to learn? I mean, we had a great year. I mean, we just, you know, the Dodgers got hot at the right time. I mean, if you don't accomplish to raise that trophy at the end of the season, you know, in the World Series, then you haven't accomplished anything. And even though we would have advanced to the second round, if Philly would have knocked us out, or even the Yankees would have knocked us out in the World Series, we didn't accomplish anything, you know. Yeah, we got to the World Series, so what, you know? They don't look at the second place, you know. They look at the first place, and they get to get the trophy. So that's something that, you know, we had a great year, yeah, of course. But you know what? The Dodgers were hot at the right time and beat us, and they played better than we did, and they got the big hits. I don't think they hit the ball as hard as we did, you know, and we just didn't cut any break. I mean, if you look at that first game with bases loaded in that first inning, definitely that could have been the turning game right there. You know, Jari hit the ball back to the middle and, I mean, smoked the ball, and they're trying to double play, you know. The Belliard make a great play. So, I mean, those are things that you need to look at. That could have changed that whole series, but hey, you can't go back and change it. All you need to do is look forward and get yourself ready for a 2010 season.
We'll close things out on this edition of Spring Training Report with who else but the closer, Ryan Franklin. That's up next. We've almost reached the end of this Cardinals Spring Training Report, and that means time to bring on Ryan Franklin. He, of course, closed out games last year for the Cardinals, was an all-star, but struggled down the stretch. Jim Hayes has more on the man who will again close out games for the Cardinals this season.
Ryan Franklin has done just about everything a pitcher can do. He's been a starter, middle reliever, and a setup man. Last year, at age 36, he became a full-time closer for the first time. He says the mental strain makes it the toughest job he's had.
To go out there and prepare yourself every day that you got to be good. If you're not good, your team's going to lose, and you feel like that you let down people.
Franklin didn't do much of that. His numbers were remarkable. 38 saves, a 1.92 ERA, and a spot on the National League All-Star team. The question some Cardinals fans have is, can he do it again?
I'm confident I can have a year like I had last year. Yeah, that is that's a really good year for anybody, and for somebody to duplicate that exact year, like the ERA below 2. I mean, I'm going to try my best.
He got him, and the Cardinals win it. As good as Franklin was last year, he stumbled a bit over the final weeks. His ERA in September was 7.56, and he blew 3 saves.
People were trying to tie him, well, it's late in the season, it must be fatigue, but I know you don't necessarily see it that way.
I mean, I don't. And you know what? If you was to go back and look, you know, some ground balls went in the hole, you know, where earlier in the year they didn't. They would go, you know, where guys could catch them, and stuff like that happens.
Franklin says he'll change his workout routine during the season to make sure fatigue isn't an issue. the Cardinals aren't really worried.
I'm one of those people that believe that he's still capable of repeating. Now, throwing a sub-2 ERA, I don't think it's a fair way to judge his success or not, but I think he's very capable. I think he's a smart pitcher. He's in great shape, and he feels good about where he is. And so, I think how you manage him and how we use him is going to be important.
He does all the little things that help him. He feels his position, tough to run on. He's very competitive. He's hungry. The only thing that you can look at is, he's not a big strikeout pitcher, so the ball's put in play.
Franklin has put last year behind him, and he says the Cardinals' premature postseason departure doesn't really provide any extra motivation. He says that kind of thing takes care of itself.
If we're winning, which we probably will, and we're doing what we can do, then that fire is going to be just as strong or stronger than last year.
For the Cardinals Spring Training Report, I'm Jim Hayes.
Thanks very much, Jim, and that will do it for this Cardinals Spring Training Report from here in Jupiter, Florida. As the Cardinals continue their workouts towards opening day on April 5th, the fields at Roger Dean Stadium remain busy and will remain busy all season as Fox Sports Midwest is your home for 130 Cardinal games this year. I'm Pat Paris saying thanks for joining us on this edition of the Cardinals Spring Training Report.
Osceola County Stadium in Kissimmee, Florida. It's spring training baseball. Today, the Houston Astros meet the St. Louis Cardinals on Fox Sports Houston and Fox Sports Midwest. Good afternoon, everybody. Bill Brown and Rick Horton. We promise to be fair and balanced, and the Astros and Cardinals have had many great games over the years, Rick.
They really have. We'll be in agreement on one subject. We won't like the Cubs together, but this rivalry's been great, Bill. We've seen some great matchups, and I think that comes from having very good ball clubs over the past few years, and we're going to see some stars out here this afternoon.
Well, the Cardinals, with that playoff tradition under Tony La Russa, 8 times in the last 14 years have gone to postseason play, and they're the defending champs.
And I can tell you, Tony has ratcheted up the competition at this time in spring training. The Cardinals not off to a good start in spring, losing a lot of games, particularly the pitchers have gotten the message. You've got to start getting the job done. We've got a couple of guys, the third starter and perhaps the fifth starter for the Cardinals going today.
Brad Mills has paid his dues as a major league coach and a minor league manager. He's about to make his major league debut. He has a banged-up ball club right now, Rick.
He really does. A lot of injuries to this Astros club, and there's a lot of question marks. Some guys trying to make ball clubs. That's what I love about spring training, Bill, is there are guys that are playing hard trying to make the team. Cardinals have brought a couple of players here today that certainly are going to make the team. They've got Ludwig will be the offensive guy today along with Molina.
We look forward to this baseball game today. Hope you'll stay with us for a while as the Astros meet the Cardinals next. It's a comfortable day here as St. Louis and Houston get ready to meet at Osceola County Stadium in Kissimmee. Temperature probably about 70, 72 degrees. The wind is blowing out to right field. That could become a factor. There is a cloud cover. No rain expected today. And let's take a look at Tony La Russa's lineup for this Cardinals team, which has won 6 and lost 10. It's a split squad day, so many of the Cardinal regulars are playing at their home ballpark in Jupiter. It's Felipe Lopez at second base, Tyler Green at shortstop, Alan Craig at first base. Then it's Ryan Ludwig, the cleanup man, in right field, Yadier Molina, the catcher, David Freese at third base, Nick Stavanoa of Houston in left field, Joe Mather in center field, Kyle Loesch is the pitcher. Wandy Rodriguez goes to work against the switch-hitting second sacker, Felipe Lopez, who just joined the Redbirds this year. He looks at ball one upstairs. Wandy having a fine year last year, Rick, with 14 wins, 12 losses, a 3.02 ERA, and he's trying to find that form this spring.
He's very consistent last year. He's one of the best left-handers in the National League. He's got surprising quickness. You don't think he's throwing hard, but the ball just jumps out of his hands, kind of like a young Jim Deshaies, you might say, Bill.
Yeah. That would be a good pattern. He's 1-2 this spring, his ERA of 9. That one tapped out to shortstop. Jeff Blum playing short today. Gets it over to Chris Shelton, and it's out number 1.
Shortstop number 27, Tyler Green.
Now Wandy, with that 14-win season last year, gets back to 51 and 52 for his career, Rick.
I think he's got a good assortment of pitches. I think that's what sets him apart. He's got the decent fastball. He also locates it well on the inside part of the plate to right-handers, and I guess the key for him will be, did he find something new that will continue on over the next few years, or was last year a fluke year for him? I think he's out to prove that he can do it again.
Tyler Green, the batter. Ball one up and into him. Wandy struggling to locate the fastball here in the first few offerings. 167 for Green with a homer. And that one misses as well for a 2-ball, no strike count with Alan Craig on deck. Green, 26 years old, from Florida, born in Fort Lauderdale, went to Georgia Tech. That went in the hole. Blum got a glove on it, but it's on through into left field as Green singles his way aboard with 1 out.
Tyler Green trying to make the club here. He had a decent year last year, really a glove guy. He hit a home run off of Steven Strasburg earlier this week on a pitch at about 117 miles an hour. And he said he just kind of ran into it, but a base hit here past the diving Blum.
It's impressive. Strasburg had quite a spring before being sent to Double-A by Washington. Alan Craig has shown well at the plate. .314 this spring with a couple of homers. He's driven in 8. And Craig last year at Memphis had quite a year, hitting .322 with 26 bombs. 25 years old. He was drafted in 06 in the 8th round by the Redbirds. And he chases one for strike one. Does he make the opening day roster in your estimation here with 2 weeks to go, Rick?
I think he's made it so far. He'd have to go into a big tailspin. He's swinging the bat very well. He's been hitting 3rd, 4th, 5th spots in the lineup. Good power to all fields. Problem with Craig is he doesn't quite have a position yet.
No balls, 2 strikes.
Played third base, Bill, early in his minor league career, and they've moved him to the outfield. Thought about first base with him, but you know there's a first baseman that's pretty good already in the Cardinal organization, and Mr. Pujols. So they're trying to find a place for him to play often. And the only way he wouldn't make the team is if they wanted him to play every day.
Okay. The Cardinals, as you mentioned, Rick, don't have much of a record to send home mail about. 6-10. The Astros are 10-7. But the Cardinals have a history of starting really well when the games count.
They do. They have not had a losing record in spring training, but one time in this last decade. 2003 was the only year. Tony La Russa treats spring training as much as you can like the first couple of weeks of the season. He really wants his guys to feel some pressure, and we'll see what kind of manager Brad Mills is, whether he wants to have that same kind of feeling the next 2 weeks of spring training before the games start counting.
That would be most interesting to follow. And on the telecast back to Houston on Saturday, Jim Deshaies was asking Brad Mills what kind of a manager he would be. So, well, I hope you can't put me under one certain thumbprint.
Right.
I might be different on one day compared to another day, depending on what the lineup is. And that was a really good answer. We've seen that from Tony as well. Of course, the hallmark of any good manager is excellent pitching. You can work with that.
No doubt about it. You find 5 guys you can throw out there that can win every day, and you've become a pretty good manager. But I think Brad Mills' challenge right now is trying to get healthy guys on the field.
Yes, it is. Alberto Arias underwent an MRI earlier today. We don't know if we'll get a result on that before we leave the air today or not, but he has not pitched since March 9th, and he is added to that lengthening list of Houston injuries right now. J.R. Tolles knocks that one down as Alan Craig works the count to 2-2.
You would prefer your team doctors and trainers spend a lot of time golfing in spring training, as there's the pitch in the dirt. Blocked pretty nicely there by the catcher Tolles. But that's not the case for the Astros this spring. They're busy, way busier than they want to be.
Tommy Manzella expected to miss about a week with a right quad strain. He'll be the starting shortstop. Lance Berkman still waiting for that knee to respond after surgery on last Saturday. That knee was drained, so he's not back to doing baseball activities yet. And there are other bumps and bruises along the way, too, on this club right now. Michael Bourne is out with the strained muscle in the right oblique area. That's not thought to be serious. He could be back as early as tomorrow. Tolles stays down on that one, and the count goes full.
And of course, every injury means a potential opportunity for somebody else to show themselves. Tolles getting a workout here already in the first inning from Rodriguez. And Tolles has got an opportunity here. I know the Astros want to see him be the everyday guy if possible. The day he had against the Cardinals, his rookie season was unbelievable. He had a career one day.
8 runs batted in. Alan Craig takes a walk. He was patient on that particular plate appearance. Now Ryan Ludwig bats with 2 men on and 1 out. Wandy really struggling to locate here. And you mentioned Tolles. This is probably a good little evaluator for him, how he works with Wandy to try to get him out of trouble here.
Catcher so important to a pitcher, particularly the young guys. But, you know, even the old guys want to have a catcher they trust. It's a partnership unlike no other partnership on the field. The middle infielders need to communicate, of course, but the pitcher and catcher is the most important synergistic relationship on the field.
Good way to put it. Not a limited partnership. We know that. Hit by Ryan Ludwig deep into center field. And that one goes all the way to the right of the 410 sign for extra bases. Tyler Green legging it home. And Alan Craig is on his heels. The relay from Jeff Keppinger not in time. A 2-run double for Ryan Ludwig. There are a few Cardinal fans in the seats here today.
Well, they appreciate what Ryan Ludwig does here. He's been a bit of a Rodney Dangerfield in terms of his performance the last couple of years. Nobody gives him much respect, but he's just keeps driving in runs. 97 RBIs last year for Ludwig, all-star the year before, and well-placed ball in right center field gap.
Corey Sullivan tracking it down. Yadier Molina bats now with a 2-0 Redbird lead. And Molina looks at ball 1. Of course, he figures to do the great bulk of the catching. 290 for the spring. 1 run batted in for Yadi, one of the great receivers in the game right now. An all-star last year, drove in 54 last season for the Redbirds. He lashes that one just foul outside third base.
It'll be interesting to watch this Astros team unfold throughout the season and figure out where their leadership's going to come from as well. Lance Berkman, you mentioned being out, one of my favorite National League players. Just love watching him play every day. But really, when this team turned over from Biggio and Bagwell and Osmus, there was a leadership changeover as well. And I'm just not sure this team has quite found its identity yet, and I think they're searching for it.
It's a good way to put it. 2 balls and 1 strike, and Miguel Tejada really picked things up in the clubhouse last season. As you know, he's moved on to Baltimore. So the dynamics have become different in the Houston clubhouse.
And of course they will with a new manager too.
That's a very good point to bring up, because I really think a lot of that leadership is going to come from him. This one gets by Tolles. No, it hits the batter. So Molina, hit by the pitch, will head for first base, and Wandy all over the place today. Tolles out to try to figure something out with him.
As Tolles speaks with Rodriguez, we'll take another look. Does this ball hit Yadi or not? It might have hit the dirt, might have hit his foot, might have hit his back leg. And any way you look at it, the Cardinals runner does not advance from second base, and Yadier is aboard. And David Freese will take his turn against Rodriguez, and he's got some work to do here this spring training to prove that he's the everyday third baseman.
If the season opens today, is he the third sacker?
I believe he is. There are a few options, but I believe he's the guy that's the favorite. Another ball in the dirt. Rodriguez really struggling, isn't he, for that release point?
Yeah, he is. Last time out, he gave up a couple of homers, didn't walk anybody, struck out 7 in 4 innings. He was working on his changeup, and Tolles has had to block several balls in the dirt so far here in the first.
The other third base options for the Cardinals are Felipe Lopez, who can play pretty much everywhere. And they also have Joe Mather on the roster, who's actually in the outfield today. A few of the players can play multiple positions, but Freese, I think, is the guy Tony La Russa wants to put in every day.
Sends this one high. Corey Sullivan backing on it, and he just watches that one sail way over the fence in left center field for a 3-run homer for David Freese, number 1 of the spring, giving the Cardinals a big 5-run first. A lot of red-shirted Cardinal fans standing and applauding that home run by Freese.
Well, this outing for Rodriguez is similar to what Chris Carpenter dealt with earlier this week. He had a similar outing against the Marlins. On this pitch is down, but Freese went down to get it. Rodriguez struggling with his control, and as so often happens, you try to just get one down central to pick up a strike, and all of a sudden somebody turns on it, and that was a bomb.
It was. Nick Stavanoa from Jersey Village High School in Houston takes strike one. Wande selected a curveball for that pitch. Now he comes back with another, and the count runs to 1-1. Stavanoa, .417 this spring. 1 homer, 4 runs batted in for Nick. Former long snapper in football. And that fastball was not close. 2 balls and a strike.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, you've done your research, Bill. I like that. What do you wake up one morning and say, you know, I think I want to be a long snapper?
Probably not number 1 on your list of career goals, but he did that along the way and fouls that back. And the Astros drafted him in 2002 in the 39th round, but he decided to go on to the University of Houston and San Jacinto Junior College as well on Nick Stavanoa's background sheet. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Nick. Last year he had 87 Cardinal at-bats. And the curveball is top foul there. He was also with the Redbirds briefly in 2008. Part of the depth that they call on in their organization. And many, of course, are regarding the Cardinals very highly again this season, as they did last. He cracks one to center. Corey Sullivan back a few steps. 2 down. Joe Mather, the 8th Cardinal batter, comes up. You saw the high pitch count for Wandy Rodriguez early. Roy Oswalt started yesterday, but that game was rained out after only 1 inning. And the big objective now is to stretch those pitchers out, Rick.
Well, they've got to start getting close to 6 or 7 innings soon because the season's right around the corner. Only a couple more starts each. You can't really go from 5 innings to 9 innings overnight. It's a different kind of toll on your body and your arm, and you've got to start stretching that pitch count to close to 100.
Joe Mather puts that one in the seat. Strike 1. Mather, 26 years old. He's from Sandpoint, Idaho. He was at Springfield in Memphis last year. He was a Cardinal in 2008. I mentioned him as one of those candidates to be a third baseman. Redbirds were 91-71, and they romped to a 7.5 game lead at the end of the season in the NL Central.
And a lot of expectations this year. Signing Matt Holliday should make the team better. Tony La Russa in his 15th year managing this club. He's trying to downplay all those expectations. Because sometimes a team that maybe you're not thinking about a lot, maybe the Houston Astros, saying maybe this will be a down year for them, but maybe they catch fire early on. They've got a great middle of their lineup, a couple of great starters at the top of their rotation. I mean, you still got to play the game. Tony knows that very well.
Well, he has Chris Carpenter and Adam Wainwright as numbers 1 and 2. That's a very good way to start the year. How does the rest of the rotation look, Rick?
Well, Kyle Loesch will be number 3. Brad Penny is slated to be the 4th starter. I think those are pretty well locked in. Loesch, our starter today. The 5th starter, a couple of names in that. Kyle McClellan is probably going to be the guy, but Jaime Garcia, who we'll also see today, is making some noise. Andy's left-handed. It's always good to have a left-hander in your rotation.
Sure is. You look around this division, and of course the Chicago Cubs have a lot of experienced players. They're trying to rebound this season. They train, as you know, in Arizona, so we can only read about them. Don't get much of a chance to see them in spring training. Milwaukee has some nice young players and made some moves over the winter. That one scattered the Astros bullpen personnel. Hard hit ball by Mather.
Well, somebody's supposed to jump on the grenade, but nobody did. They just all took off. I mean, somebody's got to take one for the team, don't they?
Nope.
I mean, not only that, they're exposing those poor fans sitting in the first row.
Self-preservation, baby.
No courage in the Astros bullpen right now.
Every man for himself. You got to stay healthy for opening day.
Exactly.
Corey Sullivan back in center. And the Cardinals explode with a 5-run first, 2 on a double by Ludwig, 3 on a homer by Freese. Cardinals 5, Astros coming up. Cardinals spot Kyle Loesch with a 5-run lead. Now the Astros come up in the bottom of the first inning with Corey Sullivan leading it off in center field. J.R. Tolles will be the catcher. And Sullivan's ready to go with Tolles on deck. Then it's Hunter Pence in right field, Carlos Lee in left, Jeff Blum the shortstop. Pedro Feliz plays third base. It's Chris Shelton at first, Jeff Keppinger at second. Wandy Rodriguez is the pitcher. And Loesch delivers. It's ball one to Corey Sullivan, who has a couple of homers, 4 runs batted in, hitting .235, trying to make the Astros as a reserve outfielder. He's looking pretty good so far to do that. That smash fielded by the first sacker, Alan Craig. 1 out.
There's the career numbers of Kyle Loesch. He's a veteran. He had an off season last year, really a lot of freak injuries for him, but the year before he had his best season as a Cardinal. Really likes working with Dave Duncan, the Cardinal pitching coach, and he would just like to start fresh. 15 wins in 2008.
Loesch began his career with Chicago, then traded to Minnesota and Cincinnati, Philadelphia. J.R. Tolles hits one toward the left field corner. That'll loop in. And Tolles takes the big turn, and he's not stopping. Here's a throw into second, and he's in head first with a hustling double. He was hitting .478 before that double.
Well, the best thing that Tolles has done in the last few minutes is he had a sit-down chat with Wandy Rodriguez between innings. It looked like they were talking over what went wrong, but he does it with the bat as well here in the bottom of the first inning, lining it into the left field corner. And he's got some ability, no doubt about it. He's just got to be consistent.
That gets it started for the Houston offense on the play at second base. Tolles beat the throw from the left fielder, Stavinoa. Now Hunter Pence, who's been on a rampage this spring, looks at a wide one for ball one. .467 for Hunter, 3 homers, 14 runs batted in. Just a glittering season offensively in spring training for him. He leads the club in runs batted in, is tied for the home run lead. That evens the count at 1-1. He is one of those tireless workers, whether it's spring training or during the regular season. And the numbers are something else. He has a slugging percentage of 1,000 right now, Rick.
Never see him do anything in a halfway. I mean, everything is always full out, even the way he plays the outfield. Sometimes looks a little frenetic the way he plays the outfield, but you'd have to say that there's certainly an attitude of wanting to do the job right that you see in Hunter Pence, and last year just an outstanding season for him.
Let's go to Patty Smith. Patty.
Well, thanks, Brownie. The Astros have all kinds of great giveaways all season long. And this year, for those of you who I know are watching in St. Louis or in Sports South, they're celebrating their 45th anniversary this year. And they're going to celebrate that by giving away this great little cap on April 9th for the fans that come out to the game. And then on the 10th, it's retro night. Both the Phillies and the Astros are wearing their retro uniforms. The fans are going to get these. So, guys, all kinds of great stuff to be given away all season long. For more on that, you can check out Astros.com. But this one is definitely one worth coming out for. Brownie?
Yeah, that's a clean looking uniform. Hunter Pence lashes one. That's caught by the third sacker. A hot line drive. David Freese corrals it.
Ball very well hit off the bat of Hunter Pence, and nice to have your defense help you out a bit. David Freese has 4 errors this spring training, but a lot of them have been throwing errors. So he's still getting used to playing every day here as Pence just jumps on it, barely has time to get out of the box.
He hit that one very squarely. Carlos Lee, the batter now.
I'm liking that retro night, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just so glad when they do retro nights that they don't go back and get into the wool uniforms. Now, I think that would be way too retro.
And that was.
And you'd have some whiny players, let me tell you.
You talk about whiny players. How about the players on the 1962 Houston Colt 45s with those wool uniforms playing in the midst of the summer, July and August, outdoors?
Well, I think on retro night, you and Jim ought to dress up in some kind of, 60s outfit yourself.
We've done that.
Nice little hat, little coat and tie.
We've done the disco thing. How about you guys?
No. I got the idea for you. I'm not saying I'm doing it.
Well, you guys are very traditional there in St. Louis, but maybe you can break those out. Brad Mills hoping Carlos Lee finds a 2-0 pitch to his liking. And Loesch does deliver a strike right there on the edge. Kyle from Chico, California. 84 major league wins and 90 losses. You know, just as important as Carpenter and Wainwright are, and they certainly are, this Cardinals starting staff came up with a few more than 1,000 innings pitched as a rotation last year. That was #1, and that's just a phenomenal number to shoot for again this year, Rick.
Well, if you could throw 200 innings as a starter, Wainwright with 233 was just outstanding. But 200 innings, that really means that you're a horse. It means you're healthy. It means we're counting on you every 5th day, and it helps your bullpen out in huge ways.
Lee takes a tough strike. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Well, with Loesch and those injuries, including the forearm problem, he wound up with only 117 innings last year.
So many of his injuries, just freaky ones. He got hit by a pitch, tripped over first base, had a guy step on his foot. I mean, just things, got hit by a line drive. Just not your typical injuries, but he's had so many of them. Very frustrating for him.
Making some good pitches here in the 1st inning. Carlos staying alive. Carlos is excellent at doing this. He's a tough man to finish off on strikes.
RBI machine, isn't he?
Yeah. Especially here in this situation. Well, there's a problem now as Brad Mills and assistant athletic trainer Rex Jones come out. But 2 outs, a man in scoring position. That's Carlos's time.
Well, like Albert Pujols, Carlos Lee, very tough to strike out for a power hitter. And that's a pretty good combination when you've got a guy that's going to put the ball in play and he's got power. So you make a mistake sooner or later to a guy like Carlos Lee, and he'll make you pay for it. But prolonging that at-bat with his kind of ability is just an absolute plus for him. He seems to be okay.
Yeah, he looks so. He just needed a little time for things to wear off. But what he does, it's so admirable for a guy in this situation, is just try to hit the ball up the middle. Time after time he's done that with 2 outs and a man in scoring position. Jeff Blum on deck. Just thinking about the numbers 1 and 2, and the Astros have, of course, Roy Oswalt, Wandy Rodriguez, Cardinals with Carpenter Wainwright. That Carpenter Wainwright 1-2 would be tough for any team to match right now, wouldn't it?
I don't think anybody can. Both of them could have been, and some would say should have been, Cy Young Award winner last year.
There it is, up the middle with 2 outs. And here comes the throw to the plate from center field. And it's offline and cut off. Carlos Lee delivers RBI number 7. 5-1 Cardinals. That's his specialty, Rick.
Exactly what you're talking about, Bill. Just being smart enough to just take what the pitcher gives you, and runner in scoring position, give your team a chance to pick up a run by taking it up the middle. It's exactly what he does. That pitch right on the inner half. He just kept his hands back, inside out swing, drove it right up the middle.
That throw drifting from the center fielder Mather, and it was cut off. Now Jeff Blum, the batter. Jeff has been playing first base in the absence of Lance Berkman, but he's at shortstop today with Tommy Manzella out of action. That's ball 1. Jeff, of course, has played shortstop earlier in his career. Last year he was the third baseman. 344 this spring with 5 runs batted in. Jeff was saying he likes to get about 50 at bats in spring training. That's a pretty good number for him to feel ready. This bouncer fielded by the first sacker, and Alan Craig will take care of out number 3. The Astros answer with a run on 2 hits and strand a man. It's 5-1 Redbirds. Spring training baseball on Fox Sports Houston and Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by the Home Depot. On the spring training Monday game, it's St. Louis 5, Houston 1. Top of the 2nd inning now. Bill Brown and Rick Horton with you today. Kyle Loesch leads it off in the 2nd inning. Wandy Rodriguez still working on that fastball location, Rick. He doesn't have it where he wants it yet.
Seems like he has pretty good velocity on his fastball this afternoon. We heard that his velocity's been down a bit, but that's a good solid fastball there to Loesch. Just a matter of where's it going. I don't hear players talk as much as they did 10, 15 years ago about having tired arms in spring training. We used to call it kind of the tired arm week, but I don't hear them talking about that now. But right around this time, you've had a couple of starts and it just feels like it's dead. And you're wondering if Carpenter early this week and maybe Rodriguez today are experiencing that a bit.
That's a very good point. And you would figure at some point during this lengthy spring training period for the players, they would go through the arm miseries like that, the pitchers, sometimes even position players for that matter.
Position players are the ones that really think spring training is too long. They say, you know, let's play 5 games and I'm ready to go. Pitchers are the ones that need to get stretched out a bit. And of course, they're the most important athletes on the club, as far as I'm concerned. A little biased on that.
You can make a strong case for it. And certainly with what the Cardinals did last year, that would be reinforced with their very good pitching staff last season. They were 4th in the league in ERA. Little foul ball looks like for Shelton. No, it's fair. And that loops in for a Kyle Loesch pop fly single. Wind is blowing out to right field. And he just flipped it inside the right field line.
Nothing going right for Rodriguez here this afternoon. Kyle Loesch gets a pitch middle away, gets jammed on it, and just finds a hole.
Loesch becomes a base runner. Felipe Lopez will try to advance him. Lopez, one of those guys who, as he puts on a Cardinal uniform this year, can fit into any number of slots there on the infield and help fortify the bench for Tony La Russa. He began his career in the Toronto organization. He was a first-round draft choice in '98. One hopper, Pedro Feliz gets it to second. Now here's the turn, and not in time. The throw was a little bit low for the Astros' second sacker, Jeff Keppinger, and that upset the timing of the play.
Feliz, the new third baseman for the Astros. Everybody's got to get used to each other. This throw just up the line just a bit. Keppinger's got to come off the bag, and it makes him take a step or two before getting rid of it. So the throw, you want to make sure of one, certainly, but defense becomes an important part when you get new guys together. They've got to find ways to get to understand each other, the little nuances, and a little off kilter there on that play.
Yes, they were. Tyler Green, the batter. Every team works very hard on the fundamentals. Pedro Feliz is one of the best third basemen defensively in the majors. But that looked like a tailor-made double play ball that wasn't turned. And when a pitcher is struggling, as Wandy Rodriguez has been, that can really open up the floodgates. Green singled to left field and came around to score in the first. That's strike one. These Astro Cardinal games over the years, we've had a lot of one-run, well-pitched ball games, 3-2, 4-3 games of that sort. So when a play is not made, it quite often can be very costly when these two teams are together. And if you're going to make mistakes, you just as soon make them in spring training, so that can be discussed. As you say, you've got a couple of new guys playing together on the infield, and it might be something they would talk about and work out, or they might just decide, hey, it was a physical error, there's nothing to dwell on here.
Yeah, there's no question about that. When you watch a spring training game, you watch it with a different eye anyway. You're looking for the development of certain players. They're getting a chance to do something maybe they wouldn't normally have a chance to do, and you're going to see, you know, who is our fifth starter? Who is our guy that's going to be our backup player? We want to see him in a clutch situation. There's the line of Wandy Rodriguez, 5 runs, 4 hits in an inning plus. And so it's not, you know, it's not the A team necessarily, and so you don't want to take too much of the results and say this is indicative of something.
Runner takes off. There's a swing and a miss. Tolles with a throw to Keppinger, and safe at second base on the strikeout of Tyler Green. Lopez gets the steal, 2 outs in the inning.
Tolles talking to the home plate umpire, Tyler Funneman, and I think he has a case for this maybe being interference on that throw down to second base. The umpire again having a protracted conversation here, but on that strikeout, Tyler Green walked across home plate a little early as far as I'm concerned, and I think he's in the way of Tolles makes the throw high. I'm not sure he would have had him anyway, but at least a case there for interference.
Yep. Alan Craig, the batter, he walked and scored. Craig looked to strike one.
Tolles makes the perfect throw. He hits Tyler Green right in the head, but he's got to throw over top of his head. And eventually a conversation with the umpire, but no call.
Well, if the hitter is a pretty good actor. He can make it look as if he lost his balance a little bit and just fell over in that direction.
They all want to be good actors, don't they?
1-1 the count. The Astros open at home, as Astros fans well know by now, against the San Francisco Giants, and Tim Lincecum to face Roy Oswalt 2 weeks from today at Minute Maid Park. And Rick, as the Astros schedule plays on out in April, they play 3 with the Giants, so you figure Lincecum and Kane pitch 2 of those. Then the Phillies come in for the weekend, so Doc Halliday's probably making his second start in that series. Who knows who else you get there. Then on to St. Louis for the Cardinals home opener. And
you might get Carpenter and Wainwright.
Could be. Then on to Chicago after that. Cardinals open on the road for the first week. They will be Cincinnati, right?
Cincinnati, and then they go on to Milwaukee. They have a 6-game road trip to start the season before that home opener against the Astros.
Gregg swings and misses, and that ends the Cardinals' second inning. With a couple of strikeouts in the frame for Wandy Rodriguez. No runs a hit and a man left. 5-1 Redbirds. Nice day for the fans here. The temperature just about ideal. The sun has come out. Wind is blowing out to right, and it's 5-1. Cardinals lead the Astros. The Astros come up in the bottom of the second inning. And for the second inning now for Kyle Loesch, he gave up a run on 2 hits in the first. He'll face Pedro Feliz, Chris Shelton, and Jeff Keppinger in this frame. Feliz has hit 400 this spring with a homer for the new Astro, and there's strike 1. The Astros made a couple of roster moves. Their second series of spring cuts. Josh Banks and Roy Corcoran, pitchers. Catcher Brian Esposito reassigned to minor league camp today. And the Astros are now at 41 players in camp. Cardinals have another game going on in Jupiter today, Rick, or did the rain allow them to start?
Well, it was raining in Jupiter when I left. Long drive to left.
That one will get out. Pedro Feliz hits number 2 of the spring as an Astro, and it's a 5-2 game as he picks up his 4th run batted in. Hitting coach Sean Berry had to like the sound of the bat, meaning the ball there. A very sharp crack, and that ball flew over that 390 sign.
The wind's more blowing out to right field here, but we're seeing the ball jump out of this ballpark. Feliz is about a 15 home run a year guy. He's more of an RBI guy than he is a power guy, more of a gap hitter, but really crushes this ball to the right of the 390-foot sign.
Chris Shelton takes strike 1. Shelton has shown good power in his major league days. And at this point, a possibility to be on that opening day club. A lot of that might depend on whether Lance Berkman is on the opening day roster. He has a homer and 4 runs batted in with a 200 average this spring. Gets underneath this one, and it's out into right center field. Ryan Ludwig calling. 1 down.
We talked about the breezy conditions here. There's the flag blowing out to right field. Beautiful complex here in Kissimmee. We may see some more home runs before the day is over. And one of the things you notice in spring training is you have a lot of problems with balls hit into the outfield. I mean, just adventures because of the wind. To say it's windy in Florida is kind of like a redundant. It always seems to be windy here, but we've seen some adventures in the outfield in the games that we've seen the past couple of weeks.
We really have. Jeff Keppinger, a 238 hitter this spring, the batter. Did you ever train in Arizona, Rick?
Did 1 year. 1 year when I was with Cleveland. And I think Arizona, certainly weather you can count on.
That one might be a gapper into right center field. And that does shoot through. Keppinger will be held to a long single, though. It's played well by Joe Mather.
At the time, there used to be long trips in Arizona, and they seem to have kind of pulled that together a bit. Line drive hitting it the other way.
Bobby Meacham, the new first base coach for the Astros, has a customer now, and it's Wandy Rodriguez around to bunt. The Astros have used the DH a lot this spring, even in home games, but from this point on will not be using it very much because obviously the pitchers are going to have to hit for real here pretty soon, Rick.
Signs have been flashed. Bobby Meacham with the verbal sign to the runner Keppinger at first. Those little cat and mouse games going on. Bobby Meacham, by the way, former Cardinal for a while, more known as a Yankee player, but he was with the Cardinal organization, originally drafted by the Cardinals. There's a look at the Cardinal defense. Be charging hard at third.
That's bunted out toward the hurler. And Loesch will get it over to the second sack recovering. Lopez takes a throw on the sacrifice. 2 down, Keppinger to second base for Corey Sullivan now. Just thinking about the makeup of the coaching staffs here, of course, Mark McGuire has joined the Cardinal staff as the hitting coach, but the Astros have several new coaches.
Get the bat head out in front of the plate. Bend with your knees if the pitch is down. Good fundamentals by Rodriguez. You know, bunting, everybody always says bunting should be easy. It's not. It is absolutely not easy to do.
Well, you practice it in the cage against somebody who's throwing, what, 75 miles per hour?
That's right. You got a guy, and then he throws a bender to you or a slider, and, you know, if you can't hit, first of all, if you can't hit, that doesn't mean you can bunt. If you can't hit, you probably can't bunt either. There's a little hand-eye reality to this, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very difficult to do because you're trying to deaden the ball off the bat, and you're trying to angle the ball to a certain place, which, again, if you were good at that, you probably wouldn't be bunting in the first place. They'd let you swing.
Well, in that case, Freese was in tight. Pitcher's right there in front, so place to bunt it is up the line. But as you say, trying to be that precise while the pitch is dipping and darting and coming in about 90, it's easier said than done. That's looped over third base and a fair ball. Corey Sullivan makes it a 5-3 ball game, and he heads for second base with an opposite field double. And the Astros come back after trailing 5-0.
Astros chipping away here this afternoon. Really good swing here by Sullivan. Just takes it the other way, but he takes it with authority. It wasn't a little half swing. He really kind of drove the ball the other way and found that line open. They're playing him pull in the outfield. He drives in the Astros' third run.
J.R. Tolles doubled to left and came around to score the first inning run for the Astros. Loesch nicks the corner with strike one. You mentioned the 15-win season 2 years ago for Kyle Loesch. 200 innings for Kyle that year. The Cardinals would love to see another one of those.
Having trouble finishing off the inning here in the second inning. Pitchers have two main jobs. They have to finish off hitters, and then they have to finish off innings. And you get in trouble when you get the quick 2 strikes and you can't finish off a hitter and all of a sudden he's on base, or you get 2 outs and you can't finish the inning. And really it's the mark of a guy who's at the top of his game. The elite pitchers always finish hitters, always finish innings.
Tolles fouls it away. No balls, 2 strikes. Just thinking too, we're talking about the coaching staff makeup. Dave Duncan and Tony La Russa go back to the mid-'80s together. And now you have a new combination, of course, with Brad Arnsberg in Houston, very highly regarded, and Brad Mills. So that's a dynamic to watch for the future.
And Brad Mills, of course, has a great pedigree with who he learned from over in Boston. He's going to certainly be good at what he does. He's going to rely on his coaches to help him get his message across.
Yes, he is. That's a strikeout to win the Astros' second inning. They come up with 2 runs on 3 hits, and it's now 5-3 Cardinals. St. Louis 5, Houston 3. We talked about the changes. One of those is Mark McGuire, the new hitting coach for the Cardinals, with Patty Smith right now.
Now the Cardinals picked by many to really be a front runner this year in the National League Central. I mean, your thoughts so far, what you've seen this spring, specifically as it pertains to your lineup?
I really like it. We really have not played with the A team yet, but that's why we have 6 weeks, and there's a few guys who are still trying to find their base. probably swinging a lot of pitches, but, we got 2 weeks left, and we'll be just fine.
And you're the rookie now. You called yourself a rookie to me just a minute ago. How are you adjusting to the transition?
I love it. It's great. It's something that I really love to do. I love to teach, and I love to pass on the knowledge, so I'm glad to be here.
All right, thanks for stopping by. All right, guys.
Thanks, Patty. 5-3 game. Cardinals leading as they bat in the third. Ryan Ludwig has a 1-1 count. Big Mac, of course, carries a lot of credentials, not only for the home runs he hit, but just the ability to understand what hitting is all about. Tony La Russa has talked about that quite a bit this winter when asked why he hired Mark.
Well, he had a lot of questions to answer on that subject, and I think one of them was you got a guy that does not have any coaching experiences at a full season level, but he said, trust me. That's what Tony kept saying. I'm telling you, this guy knows hitting, and he really wants to do this. And I have not seen Mark McGwire in spring training without a smile on his face. He's one of the first guys to get to the park every day. He's hitting in a cage or has somebody hitting in a cage, and he's helping them find, as he says, find their base, and I think he's doing a great job.
Yeah. That's nailed toward the left field corner. Ludwig hustling out of the box. He'll head for second base as Carlos Lee picks up the baseball. An opening double for Ryan Ludwig. It's hit number 5 for the Redbirds. Ludwig has a pair of doubles in this game.
Ludwig seems to have his base just fine here this afternoon. A couple of doubles, as you mentioned. And he'll be an important part of the Cardinal lineup. Matt Holliday dealing with an oblique strain. Has not played and is maybe going to be playing in the next few days or so, or at least starting to do baseball-related activities. But not only is Holliday there to protect Pujols, but Ludwig will be there to protect both of them.
That's a good 3-4-5 part of the order. Yadier Molina was hit by that pitch. There's ball one. We're just checking the box score from the other Cardinal game at home against Boston, and Holliday is DHing today. So that's got to be good news for the Redbirds to get him back in a game.
I guess we call that baseball-related activity. DHing.
Well, some would marginally so.
Right. Oh,
1 ball.
Boy, that's a good debate.
We do not see Albert Pujols in the lineup, though, in that game, and that's kind of curious.
Albert's been playing quite a bit of late, and I think Albert had some back issues early in spring training, but I think he's just fine. But Holliday, of course, a big acquisition for the Cardinals. The re-signing of Matt Holliday was big news in the offseason for the Redbirds, and love to see him back swinging the bat. Very, very potent guy in the middle of the lineup.
And then the stories came out after that signing about Albert Pujols' contract situation. What do they do with Albert? Well, they don't have to do anything quite yet, but apparently that's been tabled until after this season, if you believe what you read.
Yeah, to Albert's credit, he does a good job of not taking public any of that kind of discussion, and he really doesn't like thinking about contract while he's playing. Albert is as focused a player as I've ever seen, really, in any athlete I've ever been around. He is so focused, and I think he just feels like that would be a distraction to him.
Yadier Molina with a 2-2 pitch coming from Wandy Rodriguez. And this grounder goes to third. Feliz looks the runner back, holds him, and then makes that play. 1 out. It was a good example of how a third baseman should play it. He didn't want Ludwig to take liberties, so he had to make sure he looked at him, and not just a glance. He wanted to make sure he actually had him taking a step back towards second, so there was no way he could have gotten to third. David Freese ripped a 3-run homer to left field in the first inning. Freese takes strike 1. Brad Arnsberg was actually under contract to the Blue Jays for this season, but management had made it clear that the Blue Jay coaching staff could pursue other opportunities and move on should they choose to do so, and the Astros jumped on that opportunity to bring Brad into the fold as their pitching coach. 1 ball, 1 strike. You talked about the smile on Mark McGwire's face. Just as you see in spring training, the hours that the hitting coaches and pitching coaches put in are staggering.
It is amazing. Now, again, I guess we don't have to feel sorry for them because they're doing what they love.
Yeah. Cracked into right. Hunter Pence will now get a stop sign for the runner, so the throw comes on through in time. He had a shot at Ludwig, but Jose Oquendo stopped him at third, and it's 1st and 3rd with 1 out.
Pence does a nice job of charging this ball. Hit hard the other way. Ludwig runs pretty well. Actually, when he was younger, was a speedster. When he first got to the big leagues, a broken leg kind of took some of his speed away from him, but Pence doing a nice job of keeping Ludwig at third.
Hunter had 16 outfield assists to lead the majors, and I think your point is the appropriate one. He gets to the ball quickly. That really allows him to make a lot of those throws. Nick Stavanoa hits a foul ball for strike 1. His speed in right field helps him with that throwing. He can get the balls quicker than other right fielders might be able to.
Well, first few times that I saw Hunter Pence play right field, I went back and forth about whether or not I thought he was a good outfielder or not, because he would do some things and I'd say, boy, that doesn't look smooth and doesn't look graceful, but yet he's fast and he's athletic, and then he'd make one bad throw and then he'd make a great throw, and it just, I wasn't really sure what kind of outfielder he was.
0-2. Well, he may not be the smoothest guy. You're right. But as you've seen, and this is the beauty of it at the major league level, it's all about getting it done.
Yeah, it's nice to not be smooth and be an all-star, right? There's some smooth guys that are getting sent home.
Yeah, there are a lot of smooth operators in AA and AAA, but everything considered, Major League All-Star status is something to shoot for. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
And my good friend Tom Lawless working with the Houston Astros minor league organization. He'll be managing in Lancaster, California, and he'll be looking for some stars of the future for the Astros. Tom, a former teammate, a big home run in the World Series in 1987 against Frank Viola, his claim to fame, but looking for Tom Lawless somewhere around the ballpark here this afternoon.
Had a chat with him a few days ago about the 3 guys who played outfield last year for Lancaster, and he was extremely complimentary about them. In fact, one of those guys, TJ Steele, is possibly ticketed for Major League time in the next couple of years. He's really an interesting player. One of those possible 5-tool guys, Rick, and probably will be at Corpus Christi this year. Tom had a lot of good things to say about Steele and Jack Shuck. John Gaston was the outfielder who put up the big numbers at Lancaster, and it's possible that all 3 of those outfielders could be promoted as a unit to Corpus Christi. That would be fun for the fans of the Hooks if they got to see all those 3 side by side this summer.
Tom knows a little bit about good talent in the minor leagues. He managed a young guy named Albert Pujols when he was in the Cardinal organization as a A-ball manager.
Nice. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Stavanoa.
I think Albert was playing second base at the time. Albert played some middle infield early in his career. Then the Cardinals had him in left field, you might remember. And then they turned him into a third baseman and now a first baseman, of course.
2-2 pitch coming from Wandy. And he gets a swing and a miss from Stavanoa. Kept that ball down. For out number 2, that's his 3rd strikeout.
Well, Stavanoa not reacting at all in the right way to those breaking balls. He was just waving at those curveballs. Didn't really pick up the spin very well for Rodriguez. He's got a really good curveball. And I would say Rodriguez, for having given up 5 runs on 6 hits in his 2 2/3 innings, has made a number of high-quality pitches this afternoon. So in a way, I would think he'll have a conversation with Brad Arnsberg after this game, and they'll have some positive things to draw from this no matter what happens.
Good point. Strike 1 to Joe Mather. He appears to have turned a corner after that 5-run first. And that's again a part of what spring training is all about. The managing is different in spring training than it would be during a regular season game, of course. Tap foul, 0-2.
And Bill, I'm hoping to see one of my favorite things about spring training. I'm hoping for this afternoon. I'm hoping for a pitcher to be running in the outfield during the game.
Oh,
I don't know why I love that.
Well, you love it because you won't see it April 5th.
Right.
And if you love spring training, those are the sorts of things. Yeah, this is not something I see during the regular season. This is different. You're close to the action. If you're a fan, you can get more autographs. Do a lot of things you don't do during the regular season, perhaps.
Fans do love it, don't they?
Yes.
They tell us daily how unique this experience is.
Runner takes off on that pitch in the dirt, and on the wild pitch, Freese moves over. He appealed on the swing, but he checked it, and it's a 1-2 count. Well, many people, as you well know, build this annual spring training vacation around baseball.
Spring breaks, they have vacations they've gone on with their aunts and uncles and grandparents, and they've done it for years, and they just really make it a part of their life, checking out what their favorite team is going to be like for the next year.
To shortstop, Jeff Blum with the play, and he throws out Mather. No runs, a couple of hits, 2 men left. Cardinals 5, Astros 3 in the third. It's 5-3. We have had a lot of offense here in the early innings. Let's take a look back at some of it in case you've been out doing something and just joining us now. As the Cardinals jumped on the Astros with a 5-run first, Ryan Ludwig sent home 2 with this double to center field. That made it 2-0. Ludwig now has 11 runs batted in this spring. And David Freese powered one over the left center field fence for a 3-run shot, his first of the spring, to make it 5-0. The Astros got a 2-out, 2-strike RBI single from Carlos Lee to make it 5-1, bottom of the first inning. And in the second inning was Pedro Feliz's second home run of the spring, making it 5-2, coming off Kyle Loesch. Jeff Keppinger singled, rode home on a Corey Sullivan double in the second. And it's 5-3 now as the Astros bat in the third, with Hunter Pence looking at strike one. He blistered a line drive. It was caught by third baseman David Freese, his first time up. Boston leads the other Cardinal team 2-0 after 2 in Jupiter. That game was unable to be played a few days ago because of rain. They're making it up. That's a rarity in spring training. And Brad Penny has given up 3 hits and 2 runs in 2 innings for the Redbirds. Watch a shot right off the right backside. And Loesch is able to get him. Well, he has hit 2 BBs. And he's 0 for 2 in this game. Lined out to third and lined out off the right cheek of Kyle Loesch.
Loesch says he's fine. This could have been a lot worse. Let me tell you, this ball hit on the nose. Glad it doesn't hit your knee or a hip. Let's just say I think it got him in a fleshy part.
It did. There's some natural padding there.
But it's still going to hurt. There'll be a bruise there. You'll probably see a, or at least he'll be able to see. We won't want to see it, but they'll see eventually a Bud Selig signature probably somewhere on his body.
There might be a joke or two thrown around the Cardinal bench about keeping Hunter Pence on the infield in this game.
Players can be cruel.
Strike one to Carlos Lee. He singled in that first run for the Astros. El Caballo took his annual leave to go back to the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo to show off some livestock. Missed a few days of camp for that. His off-season ranching pursuits, and he knocks one into right field. Not well hit, but he's 2 for 2 in this game. And again, a 2-strike delivery for Carlos Lee.
Pence has hit 2 balls right on the nose and is 0 for 2, and Lee just kind of flares one the other way. The game's not always fair.
No.
Of course, neither is life, Bill.
It is not.
Right off the end of the bat, although good hitters find ways to get hits like that.
Jeff Blum, the batter, he grounded out to first. But life is more than fair on a day like today if you're sitting here watching this ball game.
Oh.
Good way to spend an afternoon.
It's been a really nice afternoon here. A lot of rain you've mentioned in Florida the past few days. And, you know, you have rain during the season, and often that's a good thing for the club. You can get people rested. But right now, they're trying to get their pitchers innings.
That's rifled, and it'll go foul for Jeff Blum. Jeff had a nice double yesterday against the Red Sox, or the day before, rather.
Blum trying to get one up in that 3-club win there to right center field. I have to say that's a 3-club win, wouldn't you, Bill?
Yeah, it's a very
Being the golfer you are?
You're right. Well, if you're a bad golfer, you want this kind of a win behind you, like he has right now. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Well, as you get set for the Cardinals season, club taking off on the road and in pursuit of another Central Division title. Playoffs ending all too quickly for the Cardinals last year. And that's a difficult thing about coming right out to the next spring, isn't it? There was so much that was a positive nature, but yet it ended badly.
It really did. The Cardinals just did not hit well. They weren't closing out games, and Colby Rasmus probably the only Cardinal that was swinging the bat well in that final series against the Dodgers. Tony La Russa did a great job of getting his club in position to do some serious damage and play a long way into October. It just didn't happen.
Lopez with a good play to his left. Looked as if that ball might sneak through, but Lopez robs Blum with that stretch out to the left, and then he had to whirl around and make the accurate throw. 2 outs.
Well, there's the value of Felipe Lopez, just tapped on the ground to the right side. Lopez can play second base, shows a little bit of range there. Play shortstop on occasion, third base and the outfield. And a nice grab. He even has the presence of mind to check the runner at second.
Now Pedro Feliz, who ripped a homer in the second inning, looks at ball 1. Carlos Lee at second. Each club with 6 hits, no errors in this 5-3 game, with the Cardinals having the upper hand. That one in the air to left field. Stavinoa comes over. And in the 3rd inning, it's no runs, a hit. A ball hit very hard by Hunter Pence. Kyle Loesch puts a 0 on the board and maintains a 5-3 lead.
And welcome back to Osceola County Stadium. 5-3 Cardinals over the Astros. I'm down here in the Astros dugout with shortstop Tommy Manzella. Saturday, pulled your quad a little bit there. Kind of give us an update on your status.
It's going good. The treatment's been going good so far, and I think I was able to hold up on it pretty good on it, and didn't kind of lessen the effect of the strain. And just we're going to take it day by day. And I know they're preaching to be real cautious about it, but I want to get out there as soon as I can.
Well, I know you do, and I know you're shooting for opening day, but just talk a little bit about this spring training. You kind of the difference for you coming in sort of pegged as the starting shortstop, and how different that was from, say, last year.
Yeah, I guess the best thing about it is I get a little bit more playing time in camp, which something that I didn't really get the last couple of years in camp, and so it's been good, and it's been fun to kind of work with all the starters out there, and just kind of you're learning from a lot of people. There's a lot of different things to learn, arms in the outfield, stuff like that, and it's been good to get to know so far, and hopefully I'll get out there pretty soon and get back to work.
All right, well, hopefully we see you for opening day, and I'll let you go rest it.
I'll be all right. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Patty. Tommy Manzella, 27 years old. He had 5 at-bats at the end of the season last year, a Major League rookie, hopefully to be in that starting lineup.
It's great to hear a 27-year-old rookie talk about there still being a lot to learn. He's played a long time, obviously, and he's played at the professional level, but there really is something about being at the big league level. There is so much to learn. The game looks like it's simple, but the details about where to play defensively and how to work with your middle infielders and when to be in the right spot on cutoff plays. I mean, it's just there's some intricacies that take time to learn.
So true. Wandy Rodriguez has reversed things today after giving up 5 in the first. Had a scoreless second, and in the third he had runners at second and third, but struck out Stavinoa and got Mather on a ground out. So he's turning this into a decent outing after the first inning. Working on the changeup there. It goes to a 2-ball, 1-strike count. Really a very important guy in the scheme of things after working 200 innings last year, and with Roy Oswalt winning 8 and getting 16 no decisions, Wandy wound up with 14 victories. As you look at the other clubs in the division, we talked a little bit about the Cubs and Milwaukee, but some people think Cincinnati could be a surprise team this year, Rick.
Well, Cincinnati should be better. I actually thought they'd be better last year than they were. They've got some good young hitters. Of course, they've got the pitcher Chapman that should have an impact for them.
Slowed down, barehanded by Blum, and Blum gets it to Shelton. A deflection by Wandy, creating a difficult play, but Blum made it well for out number 2.
The Pirates, the only other team that we didn't talk about. You'd expect them to still be young and far off, and they lost a couple of players, and that would have been a base hit if Rodriguez does not get a glove on it.
You know, the Pirate players, according to one story, though, very anxious to be the team that ends this streak of 17 straight losing seasons. So each team has its own objectives.
It won't be easy. They, of course, got a couple of good young players. McCutcheon is just an outstanding young player, but they lose Matt Capps too. They've just, they just haven't, unfortunately, have just not been able to keep their good players long enough to build a big enough nucleus to win games.
And it seems that now that what they've done largely is just clear the cupboard and have mostly young players who hopefully can grow together instead of trying to patch with some veterans.
I'm not sure what manager, it might have been Whitey Herzog, used to say is I don't want to hear just about young players because young players might not be very good. Says, I don't want to go to a youth movement if all the young players can't play. So, I mean, it really shows you that you've got to draft well. And you've got to draft well over a couple of year period to be able to turn a franchise around.
Slow roller for Feliz, and no chance to get Tyler Green. Green is 2 for 3 now. Feliz was playing deep. That's 7 hits now for the Redbirds, who exploded in a 5-run first.
No chance to get Tyler Green here. Nice bare hand play by Feliz, off balance throw, but Green runs very, very well. And we may see him steal here. Tony La Russa wants to run a bit more with this club. Schumacher, Rasmus, Tyler Green would be the guys that you think could steal some bases.
Alan Craig walked and he struck out. And he looks at ball 1. Craig played third, first, and left field last year at Memphis. He's hit 72 homers the last 3 minor league seasons. Late on the fastball. That fastball has really come around since the early game struggles, Rick.
Yeah, very late on that explosive fastball up and away to Craig. Craig does like to hit the ball the other way, so he'll stay back occasionally on a pitch and try to drive it to right. Not a bad idea the way the wind's blowing out.
You mentioned the running game, the Astros too, and we were talking with the new skipper Brad Mills about this on Saturday, referred to that earlier, but what kind of a manager will he be with the running game? Well, he selected 3 players who can run on the club as well, and talked about running with those, and I'm sure Tony's that same way. There's certain players, of course, you don't ask them to run. Runner going here, and this throw sails high into center field, and the running game does work for St. Louis as Tyler Green gets over to third on a steal and the throwing error by J.R. Tolles.
Well, the Astros have the best runner of all of the lot here in Michael Bourne, but Tyler Green does get down the line pretty quickly as well. Good jump there. Rodriguez had him going back to the bag the 2 pitches earlier, but he picked something up there, or at least took a chance on that pitch, and no chance for Tolles to get him anyway.
So now the count 1-2 with 2 outs and a runner at third. And for the Astros, it would be Bourne and Matsui and Pence. Boot it. Feliz with the throw across to put up a 0 in Wandy Rodriguez's 4th inning with 1 hit and 1 error and a man left. Still 5-3 Cardinals. Still 5-3. The Cardinals got 5 in the first, a 2-run double by Ryan Ludwig, a 3-run homer by David Freese in their 5-run inning off Wandy Rodriguez. Since then, Wandy has put up 3 zeros. The Astros pecked away with a first inning run. They got 2 in the second. Now it's Chris Shelton batting for them in the 4th inning, and he takes ball 1 from Kyle Loesch. In the other Cardinal game, they're trailing Boston 5-4 after 3. That's a smash, and Chris Shelton heads for second base as it goes down into the left field corner. A well-hit ball by Shelton. And the Astros are sprinkling hits throughout their lineup. They've matched the Cardinal total of 7 now.
And Matt Holliday is DHing in that game, as you mentioned earlier, and has a hit in that game. Shelton has an opportunity with the Astros to make this club and perhaps make a difference. I recall that blistering start he had with the Detroit Tigers when he first came up to the big leagues. He was red hot. He's the best hitter in baseball for first 2 or 3 weeks of the season.
He was. He hit 9 homers in his first 13 games. And the Astros would certainly welcome that if he is on their opening day club. And we're not sure yet about Lance Berkman being there. Jeff Keppinger singled and scored earlier. And that would be one debate, certainly, for Brad Mills, Ed Wade, the coaching staff of the Astros, when it comes time to making up that opening day roster. Do you go for more power? Do you go for more of a utility type like an Edwin Masonette or somebody else? If Lance can't make it, and that's not been ruled out certainly at this point.
I always like power off the bench. I think more often than not, you need at least one guy that you get to the 8th inning, that if you get a couple of runners aboard, you can pinch hit him and he can be a difference maker. And I just think you've got to have somebody that can put a charge into the ball. The Cardinals did not have somebody like that last year. They were more gap hitters, singles hitters. And you like a guy, you know, like a Orlando Palmeiro, who did that for years here with both the Cardinals and the Astros. I like a guy like him, too, who's going to get on base, walk, give you a pesky at bat. But you talk about a game changer, somebody that can blow a game wide open or get you back in it. I vote for the power.
Keppinger in the air toward the right field corner. Ryan Ludwig backing up, and Shelton tags and heads for third base. The throw coming into the shortstop on out number 1. Keppinger moving the runner over, and now the pitcher spot comes up, and we'll get a pinch hitter. Wandy Rodriguez leaves after 4 innings of work, allowing 7 hits, 5 runs. He walked 1, struck out 3, and he hit a batter. And one of the Astros players from minor league camp, Brandon Barnes, comes up to pinch hit. Barnes played yesterday in the split squad game against the Boston Red Sox. It's a real thrill for a guy to come over from minor league camp, not officially a part of major league spring training, except on spot occasions like this one, and try to open some eyes.
It's a great opportunity. But you want to take advantage of it. You don't want to wear 97 the rest of your life.
Barnes, an outfielder from Anaheim, California. He was drafted by the Astros in 2005 in the 6th round. Last year he played at Lexington, Lancaster, and a little bit at AA Corpus Christi. And is a pitcher tiring at this point? It's only the 4th inning, but still we're talking about building arm strength and things of that nature, Rick.
Yeah, now you're trying to get him out with fumes here a bit. And, you know, it's a physical, you know, you're trying to build up your body, not just your arm, your body to pitch, you know, 5 or 6 innings.
Do the legs go on you?
The legs go. You know, you might have stiffness in your back. You might just have, you know, you pounding on your landing foot. And this isn't like, again, these are not major sorenesses, but they're enough for you not to be able to have that fine motor skill ability to throw a pitch exactly where you want it. That's the difference. It's not, you're not talking about feeling bad for these pitchers that, oh my goodness, they're not in shape. No, that's not what we're talking about. It is very difficult to throw that ball into a small little area 60 feet 6 inches away, and you've got to be physically perfect to be able to do that.
Ground ball foul past the third base coach Dave Clark. 3 balls, 2 strikes now on Barnes with Sullivan on deck. Another part of using these players from minor league camp, in addition to all the injuries in the Astros organization right now, perhaps, is to give the new skipper a look at what he might have in years to come in the minor leagues.
Always auditioning.
Now the second baseman Lopez comes running in on that pitch. We've seen Tony La Russa's infielders do that in previous years.
I think nothing's as impressive as that fan we saw, though, with a beer in the left hand and a glove in the right. I mean, she's ready. She has come to the ballpark ready. Got the glove on. If she catches a ball hit down there, I want to see if she can do it without spilling her beer.
She does not need spring training to be an opening day readiness. It's interesting again. Lopez started to move in from second base, and that sometimes puts a thought in the head of the hitter when he sees that movement by an infielder. And there's a walk. Brandon Barnes, not over anxious coming off the bench, makes it runners at first and third with 1 out, and Corey Sullivan bats. It's Kyle Loesch's day, Rick.
He had a base hit the other way. Got to be thrilled about that. Interesting day for him. He also has made some good pitches, a couple of strikeouts early on, and then he takes one off the backside. Not too thrilled with that. Overall, a pretty good afternoon for Loesch, who's in his 4th inning of work. Has given up 7 hits, but his control has been pretty good. I would say his stuff's been, I wouldn't call it his best stuff, but I think it's been good.
Corey Sullivan with ball 1. And a team like the Cardinals, having gone to the postseason last year, a little bit shorter offseason than the other clubs, but typically the Cardinals are used to doing that. And the players begin that fresh grind the next year. And it is a grind for a team that's pushing to close things out there in the month of September. It does take a lot of energy, but then again, it's a very nice problem to have going to postseason so often.
And Tony is a grinder, unlike many other managers in the big leagues, and you know, you've got your people that would say that's a great way to be, and others would be a detractor of that, but he really pushes every day, and you know, you've got to have a special mental makeup to be able to play for Tony La Russa, and he believes in pressure. He wants pressure constantly. Some big league managers will say, I want my guys to show up relaxed, and that's going to make them play better. Tony believes the opposite. He believes pressure makes you play, and he likes to put it on guys. He likes to tell them, look, you're going to earn this job, start getting some hits. He likes that kind of conversation.
Loesch makes the pitch, and Sullivan's down on strikes. That's his 2nd strikeout.
Good pitch down in the zone. Off-speed pitch takes care of Sullivan. Might have been a sinker that actually stayed on the inside part of the plate. Loesch has good movement with his pitches when he's right. You know, think about Tony, a lot of his friends. You know, he's friends with Bobby Knight, friends with Bill Parcells, friends with Bill Belichick. I mean, aren't they all the same guy?
That's the intensity club.
That's right. That's right. I'd be afraid to ask for membership in that club.
J.R. Tolles takes a slider. There's strike 1. He has a double and a strikeout.
Yeah, what's that initiation like into that club?
You know what I can't see those guys doing? Going fishing.
No. Oh, that's funny.
Maybe they do, but yeah, they're all of that same bent.
If they're fishing, it's a big competition, I can tell you that.
It's for marlin. Strike there. Sammy Hervasio's warming up in the Astros bullpen, as you might have seen a moment ago. Sammy has a unique style, and he has added to that style this spring. We're about to see that. Something you probably won't see from another major league pitcher for a while.
I can't wait, Bill.
That's the build-up here in a spring training game after 4 innings. No runs, a hit, 2 men left. It's 5-3. The Redbirds lead it. Sunny skies above. It's 5-3. St. Louis leading Houston. And we have some changes for the Astros here. Moving to the 5th inning. Wandy Rodriguez leaving after his 4 innings of work. And Sammy Hervasio takes over on the mound. 1-1 with a 2.14 ERA during the 2009 season. Hervasio coming in with that sidewinding style. He has added to that, Rick Horton, this spring. He now holds that baseball up toward the 3rd baseman and looks in that direction before he delivers. A rather unique development for Sammy Hervasio.
I guess if you have good numbers like that, you add to your style the next year. Although I don't know that adding to your style should be a real goal for a major league player as Barnes takes over in center field.
So Corey Sullivan leaves. He was 1 for 3 with an RBI double. And the pitcher, Hervasio's in the leadoff spot. Sammy delivers ball 1 to Ryan Ludwig, who has a pair of doubles and 2 runs batted in.
Got a live arm, no doubt about that. Kind of slings it from about 3/4.
Right-handers hit only .208 against him last year. Now he's not doing it today.
Well, he did it early on that pitch.
Okay.
He kind of held the ball up and pointed it towards 3rd base and almost showed everybody the ball, looked at it.
There we go. There it is. See this? Try to hit this. He's not really doing it toward the hitter, so what do you think the hitters would be saying about that?
Well, I think the hitters wouldn't really take it personally because he's not really, I don't think, trying to show him up. He's just got this little lock-in mechanism. I don't know. Just trying to clear his head, I guess.
Soft liner, and Jeff Blum goes up to snare it.
So what, he spent all off-season thinking about that?
Apparently he's put some thought into this, yes. He's studied Pedro Martinez and some other, well, Jose Valverde, of course, was stylish as the Astros closer.
He doesn't have the same hops he used to have, but nice play.
Yeah.
By Jeff Blum, veteran.
Snagged a rebound. Yadier Molina. And Blummer will be heading to Houston, but not for the Sweet 16. A little bit later than that. Patty Smith is waiting. Patty?
Well, yes, I am, and I'm waiting out here with a bunch of Cardinals fans. We may be at Osceola County Stadium, home of the Houston Astros, but there are Cardinals fans everywhere. I got two right here, Diana and Gilbert. They make the trip from St. Louis. Avid fans here in Kissimmee. Right.
Yes, we love our Cardinals. We'll follow them anywhere.
And, you know, what is it that you like about the whole coming to Florida and doing it spring training-wise versus being in St. Louis?
Well, I like watching the games and seeing the new prospects, see what the farm system's bringing up, and keeping up with the Cardinals and getting ready for opening day.
Do these Astro fans give you guys a hard time at all, or does everybody get along?
The Astros are great fans. Compared to the Braves, they're great fans.
All right, guys, enjoy your day. Thanks.
Yeah, all right, have a good day.
All right, guys.
Yeah, a couple of things out of that interview strike me, Rick. One is the statement they made about seeing the minor leaguers.
Exactly. I was just thinking that. I was tracking the same thing. In fact, not only the minor leaguers playing here, but going over to the complex and watching the young prospects play, it really is a special thing to get to do. And for anybody that comes to spring training, highly recommend that. Go watch a couple of A-ball games and learn some of these names and watch these young guys play.
Very nice treat to be able to do that.
And they like having you there, trust me. I mean, they know there's 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people at the big league games, and there may be 4, 5, 6 people at theirs. So, so go watch them.
Now we have a little conference with the runner at second base. Tolles and Gervasio getting together with David Freese, the batter. There is a look at the Astros minor league part of the complex with 5 diamonds over in that direction. And on any given day, there might be ball games happening over there at the same time as this one, but it appears that the minor league clubs are traveling today, so that's why you don't see activity at the moment.
I believe they're in Vieira today. But the multiple fields, no matter where you go in the Grapefruit League, you'll be able to watch not only the A-ball game, but the AA, AAA, maybe watch them all at the same time. So I think it really is a treat. It's fun. It's good baseball.
Bill Brown, Rick Horton, Patty Smith with you today, and glad you're with us for this Astros-Cardinal game with a 1-1 count. 2 weeks to go until opening day for these two clubs. A lot yet to be decided. A lot of good baseball ahead for the fans who are watching today. Many interesting rookies maybe on the cusp of breaking through with the various clubs. They mentioned the Braves fans. That's the other point I wanted to get to about that interview with those Cardinal fans. The rivalry between these two is a very respectful one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's some in the game that aren't quite so respectful. I think of the Dodgers Giants, maybe the worst. You know, the Yankees and Red Sox can get kind of nasty at times. But I think from the fans' point of view, really, I feel that same way about the entire National League Central Division. You know, you go to Milwaukee and the fans are wonderful there, and Chicago, and for all the rivalry that the Cubs and the Cardinals deal with each other, the fans there are very, gracious, and they like to have a good time at Wrigley Field. But it's all in fun, and I think it's something about the Midwest, something about the South that just makes the rivalries much more pleasant.
Must be that politeness people have been taught growing up in those areas. Gervasio looking back at the base runner. Just looking at the schedule between these two. The Astros will be there when the Cardinals open at home April 12th, 14th, and 15th, and then they go back to St. Louis for another series in May before the Cardinals come to Houston in July for the first time. Blum to his left, sliding play. He gets up and makes an accurate throw to a stretching Shelton. Well done by Blum. 2 outs.
Blum's trying to win a Gold Glove here today in spring training. Makes a nice play to start the inning, and another one up the middle. This one's even better. Diving to his left, and he pops up quickly. and throws out David Freese for the second out, helping out Gervasio. I really like this guy's arm. I think the Astros bullpen might be a strength of this team. They're going to have to find somebody to finish games, somebody they're really confident in and day out. I think losing Valverde's certainly a big shoes to fill. And open case, I guess, as to who that's going to be to close out the ninth.
Yeah, Valverde moving along to Detroit. LaTroy Hawkins, who was his setup man, moving on to Milwaukee. So they brought in Matt Lindstrom, who's thrown very well this spring, 100-mile-per-hour pitcher. And Brandon Lyon, who was out with a cyst and got a late start, cyst in the shoulder area. But Lyon actually has more career saves than Lindstrom. So that's the battle here in the remaining 2 weeks to see who will close and who will pitch the eighth. And a very important one, as you're mentioning, and a lot of times, as you well know, Rick, the eighth inning becomes the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost a battle of, who's going to get the bigger contract next year. It doesn't really make a difference about winning or losing. That battle really doesn't matter in some cases because the eighth inning is so important. People talk about the second closer, and you really need, and often the guy pitching the eighth is pitching to the middle of the lineup.
Sure.
So that inning may be the inning that matters most.
Gervasio strikes out Stavanoa. It's no runs a hit, and the man stranded at third base. Still 5-3 Cardinals. There's the line score with the Cardinals jumping out in front with 5 in the first inning, 3 on a homer by David Freese, the other 2 on a double by Ryan Ludwig. The Astros adding a run in the first, 2 more in the second inning. It has stayed 5-3 since then. Cardinals still have Kyle Loesch on the mound as the Astros bat in the 5th inning. And it'll be Pence, Lee, and Blum due up for the Astros. Hunter Pence has cracked 2 line drives. The first one was caught by the third baseman Freese. The other one went off the backside of Kyle Loesch, who threw him out.
He may try to bloop one in somewhere now. Get back on track.
Freese is playing him in tight at third. It's a 1-ball, 1-strike count. Loesch going for his first win of spring training 2010. He's 0-1 with a 4.22 ERA so far.
Steady diet of breaking balls. That's 3 in a row to Pence. Occasionally Pence will get those happy feet when it comes to breaking balls, and when he's not hitting well, he can be kind of carved up. But you hang one to him and he can still do some damage with it. There's 4 in a row.
Bring it. It's probably something that Hunter Pence actually likes at this point, to be seeing that steady diet, because that has been something that he's needed work on in the past. He taps this one to third. Freese coming in. Makes a good play.
David Freese has a reputation as a very good fielder. Again, we talked about his errors that he's had in spring training. Most of them have been throwing errors thus far, but his glove is good. Brian Barton talked with him extensively, former Cardinal, about Freese, playing with him all year long, and he said he makes some great plays. He said he's not Scott Rowland, but he's a very, very good fielding third baseman.
Carlos Lee is 2 for 2 with an RBI today. There's strike 1. Freese has been under the microscope this winter. He's a St. Louis native. Began his career in the San Diego organization. He was traded for Jim Edmonds. Last year was banged up. He had left ankle surgery. He had good numbers at Memphis. Just 31 at-bats with the Redbirds. This could be his time. Out into right center field for Carlos, and Mather lays out for it, but that's in for a Lee hit, and he's going to try to stretch it. The throw from Ludwig on the wrong side of the bag, and he's in with a double. Lee 3 for 3 today.
He doesn't exactly square up this ball either. He hits it a bit off the end, and it kind of slices into right center, and Mather tries to lay out to come up with it. Ludwig right there backing up, the throw just on the wrong side of the base. Cardinals are looking for somebody else to be able to patrol center field when Colby Rasmus doesn't play center. He's in that game this afternoon in Jupiter against the Red Sox, but the Cardinals are going to need somebody else that can play center.
Now Jeff Plum's the batter. And he rips another one foul. He had a foul shot his last time up. He's 0 for 2 in this game. Well, apparently the pinch runner there is Brandon Barnes, and we have a switch from the numbers that we were given, and so David Cook was the player who pinch hit for Wandy Rodriguez in the 4th inning. Ground ball to second. Lopez on over to first. 2 down. Pedro Feliz gets a shot with the Astros down 5-3 and 2 outs. Runner at third here in the 5th inning. Edwin Masonette getting loose in the Astros bullpen area. Stretch Suba, who's been in the Astros bullpen for many, many years, is one of the few people who can go back to the opening of this complex 25 years ago. It's been a good destination for a lot of fans throughout Central Florida.
You know, it's the other thing you like about spring training. You often see some of the guys that have been around a long time in spring training. Seeing Jose Cruz here and Enos Cabell right next door to us here at the ballpark. It's always good to see former players and people who are still part of the organization and mean a lot to anybody that's followed the club for a long period of time. Hey, Cruz was as good a hitter as, you know, I would say he was a much better hitter than people really knew about. I would say one of the most underrated hitters in the National League at the time.
Well, back when he played, the Astros had very little power in their lineup, and he was a good, solid RBI man who ran well. They, of course, in the spacious Astrodome, really relied on that type of approach, as you well remember, Rick.
And Enos Cabell, I also remember I had my first hit in the big leagues against the Astros, against some guy named Ryan. I forgot what his first name was, but
nice.
I ended up standing next to Enos Cabell at first base, and he walked. I mean, I was a young kid, and Enos, a veteran player, he said, "Kid, do you have any idea what you just did?" That's what he said to me.
That's smacked by Feliz out into center field, but Mathers there for the catch to end the Astros 5th inning. No runs a hit and the man stranded. It's still 5-3 St. Louis.
And welcome back. 5-3 Cards over the Astros. Jeff Blum with a stellar defensive day as he's about to head out. But you said you had a lot of fun out there today.
Yeah, so, you know, I came up as a shortstop, so I had a blast getting back over there. And, you know, unfortunately, some injuries forced me over there sometimes, but I appreciate the fact that Millsy gave me an opportunity.
And let's talk a little bit about Millsy. Just kind of the difference in camp this year.
Yeah, extreme difference. A little more upbeat, a little more fundamentally sound. He's got things working on his program, and he's got us moving, which is nice. Keeps our minds off of wandering a little bit and keeps us focused on the game.
Well, and it seems like as we're winding down spring training here, this is the time of the year that everybody kind of gets a little antsy, wants to get home. I don't feel that as much this year. Everybody seems to still be really having a good time.
Yeah, you know, he's got us working hard. You know, our mind is on the game right now. We were a little disappointed, I think, the guys that are coming back from the last couple of years, disappointed in how we played. I know that you know, Roy's going to be healthy. Adding Britt Myers in the mix is going to be a lot of fun. And, you know, getting on the field and seeing how this thing's going to play out is going to be good for us. We kind of like the fact that nobody's counting us into this thing.
All right, stay under the radar.
Always. It's the story of my career.
All right, go shower up, guys.
Thanks, Patty. Nice of Jeff Blum to stop by and chat. That's another part about spring training that we don't get to see during the regular season. There's strike 2 to Joe Mather and a 1-2 count. By the way, we were given a note by a St. Louis fan sending greetings to Jim O'Neill in St. Louis from Peg and Don, who gave us the note. And happy 21st birthday to Zach. Popped up on the right side. Chris Shelton comes in toward the plate and calls for it. 1 out. Hervacio's pitched an inning and a third now in relief of Wandy Rodriguez.
We're going to see some more wholesale changes for the Astros as we go along here, but the Cardinals, we mentioned that with a split squad game, pretty much going to go with this lineup. They have a pinch hitter here, and Mark Shorey will pinch hit for Kyle Loesch, so his day is done. Loesch was able to go 5 innings, and Shorey had a pretty decent year in Memphis last year at .291. 5 homers, 27 RBIs there.
Ball one to Shorey from Gervasio, and this usually is the test for a right-hander who has the type of delivery Gervasio has, getting left-handed hitters out. Had something on that pitch, and the count goes to 1 ball, 1 strike.
I'm still working on that showing the ball thing, whether or not that's bothering me or not. Not really, I guess. Not as bad as untucking your shirt like the Brewers do. I still can't get over that. And I'm wanting to see if Jim Edmonds is going to do that or not. If Jim Edmonds does in fact play for the Brewers and make the team, and all indications are they're looking for him to make a contribution there.
Jason Michaels is in left field with Edwin Masonette at shortstop now for the Astros, and Cook is in right with Barnes in center. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Shorey. Well, with Valverde's stylishness as the Astros' former closer. I was going to ask you about Gervasio picking up off that. Does that type of thing become infectious from one player to another? And strikeout number 2. But of course, you might not have pitched with anybody who did that kind of an antic.
Well, Joaquin Andujar, who also played as an Astro and a Cardinal, another guy that played both these clubs, he had some antics of his own. He'd kind of shoot you every once in a while after he struck you out. And Pascual Perez was probably the worst guy in the game at that time. He did some goofy things. But, I think it's just more par for the course now. I just don't think people get that upset about it anymore. And, the people that get upset about it are the guys that played 20 years ago and longer that just find that to be a respect issue.
Now it's more about entertainment, it seems.
Well, it's certainly about entertainment. Fans love to get autographs, love to be up and close to players.
This is what you talked about earlier. As players exit the game and make their way down to the Astros clubhouse, they are very accessible for those autographs you see Hunter Pence signing right now. That's right on their way to the clubhouse, and they routinely do stop and sign.
It's good that they do that.
Chris Johnson's in the game at third for the Astros. And foul back by Felipe Lopez.
And if you think about it from the player's point of view, that's one thing that spring training is. It's basically 4 to 5 weeks of home games. I mean, it isn't their home, but they're not traveling. You're not, the demands of traveling, the time schedule problems for players, a lot different once the season starts. Mark McGwire is going to have his share of people wanting a piece of him once the season starts. Spring training's a little more low key. I'm sure he'll have his moments where the reporters will be all over him, but I think he's handled it very well thus far, and again, nothing but smiles out of Mark McGwire.
Trying to think of a hitting coach who's been under this kind of demand for interviews, and that does not come to mind. Lopez strikes out. Gervasio puts up his second 0 in relief of Rodriguez to keep the score at 5-3 St. Louis in the 6th.
All the way across?
And welcome back to Osceola County Stadium. 5-3 Cardinals over the Astros still. And I have to kind of make a little apology to a Cardinal fan here, because on Saturday it was my birthday. So, some of the announcers, Bill Brown, Jim DeShays, brought me down a cake to celebrate my birthday. They dropped it on the ground. Anyway, all these fans here were laughing at me. I made them eat the dirty cake. This guy right here, I called him Cardinal Boy on the air. You can see I smashed cake in his face. But his real name is John. He's back out here today rooting on his Cardinals. John, I apologize for the cake in your face, and actually not for calling you Cardinal Boy. I actually like that, but I'm glad you're back to see your Cardinals play.
I'll take it. And go Cardinals.
How was the cake, though, more importantly?
Actually, the cake was pretty good. I didn't get a piece that was dropped on the ground, but wasn't bad.
All right, well, I know you're a big Cardinal fan. You've been out here for a few games now, but how special and how fun is this for you to come out here and root on your Cards here at spring training?
Well, I used to live up there 2 years ago. I used to go to games all the time. Astros, they're in the division, and big rivalry, so I'm loving this game, even bigger than the Yankees, and, go Cardinals, like I said.
All right, forever Cardinal Boy, guys.
All right.
Cardinal Boy, I like that.
He's becoming a regular on our telecast. Jaime Garcia's in the game, and he's just thrown strike 1 to Chris Shelton. Shelton to left field. And that will rattle off the wall in left center field. And Shelton gets in with a leadoff double here, his second double of the game. The Astros have had hits in every inning now. The Cardinals had done that until the top of the 6th.
Shelton making an impression here this afternoon. Jaime Garcia, the left-hander, taking over for Kyle Loesch. Hangs one, and Sheldon makes him pay for it. It's a breaking ball, just didn't quite have enough bite to it. And Garcia, lucky that that ball stayed in the ballpark. He's had a very good spring training. Opponent's only batting 107 against Garcia. High number of strikeouts. Look at that, 12 strikeouts in 8 innings.
And it's Jeff Keppinger. Looking at ball one. Keppinger singled and scored in the second. Hit a fly ball to right in the fourth. Garcia, 23 years old, from Reynosa, Mexico. Living in Mission, Texas. Went to high school there. Keppinger took a shot to right field and fouled it for a 1-1 count.
Only about 40 innings for Garcia last year because of his arm injury, and so not really sure coming into spring training this year whether he'd be ready for a full season or not, whether you'd want to put him in that 5th spot, but he's really opened some eyes. The thing about having Garcia in the rotation, if he's able to make this club, is you could put, theoretically, Kyle McClellan back into the bullpen and shore up your bullpen. Cardinals have had some trouble figuring out who are going to be their 7th, 8th inning guys. Most teams have that problem and that question.
Hit out to second base. Lopez with the play. Shelton over to third as Keppinger is retired, 1 out. Boy, you're right, and that's a critical time of the game.
Think about what Russ Springer did for years, again for both of these ball clubs, and the Houston Astros gave him a chance to get his career back on track, and then he came over to the Cardinals and was just outstanding for a couple of years, and really somebody you can count on in the 7th inning, not just the 8th inning, but the 7th inning to get 3 big outs, and Springer was that guy.
Runner at third now, and the Cardinals leading by 2 can play the infield back here in the 6th inning. And there's ball 1 for Garcia. Cardinals got 5 in the first, 3 on a homer by David Freese. The Astros have a Pedro Feliz home run in this game.
I'll get it out.
It's 2 balls, no strikes. Brandon Barnes came off the bench to draw that walk in the 4th inning. Broken bat roller out to second. That'll get the runner home on out number 2. And it's a 5-4 game now. The Astros pulled it within 1 on the RBI ground out. Now Jimmy Van Ostrin will be the pinch hitter for the pitcher. Another of the players over from minor league camp. Those larger, more protective batting helmets are being utilized throughout minor league baseball. And we've seen a few major leaguers wear them. David Wright last year after he got beaned. Francisco Cervelli of the Yankees, their backup catcher, has been wearing one of those this spring after he was beaned.
David Wright still a little sensitive about that beating last year, and I guess I can't blame him. You get hit in the head with a pitch. Brad Thompson with the Cardinals buzzed him. And this spring, the Cardinals threw a pitch up and in on David Wright, and he had a couple of words to say about that. Wasn't too happy about it. You know, hitters get a little squeamish. You hit them in the ribs or in the knee or in the leg, that's one thing, but up around the head, that's dangerous.
Fly ball left field. And that's caught on a warning track. So in the 6th inning, the Astros tally a run on 1 hit to make it a 1-run Cardinal lead, 5-4 St. Louis through 6. A 5-4 lead for the Cardinals. Top of the 7th inning coming. Time now for our Doing More on Defense feature, brought to you by the Home Depot, showing you Felipe Lopez and Jeff Blum. Here's Lopez. Far to his left to get Blum at first base with a nice spin move on the throw there. So Lopez took that slow roller and stretched out on it. Now up the middle, Jeff Blum makes his own fine play, leaving his feet to make that throw to first base to get David Freese in the 5th inning. And Wilton Lopez comes in for the Astros. It's 5-4 Cardinals. Cardinals batting in the 7th inning. Lopez spent some big league time with the Astros last season. He'll be facing Tyler Green to lead it off. 0-2 with an 8.38 ERA last year for Wilton Lopez. He's 26 years old, from Nicaragua. He was in 8 games for Houston. Was at Corpus Christi with a 4-5 record there for the AA club with a 4.73 ERA before he was promoted. Green has 2 hits today. There's strike 1 to him. Sammy Hervasio worked 2 innings. He allowed 1 hit, no runs. And he had no walks and struck out 3. Good day for Hervasio. Cardinals have not scored since their 5-run first.
Hervasio was outstanding. He had a lot of life on his breaking ball and his fastball. Cardinals did not have a lot of good swings against him.
And he was entertaining as well. He did it all today. 1-2 to Tyler Green. Wandy Rodriguez started for Houston, giving up 7 hits, 5 runs in 4 innings. Kyle Loesch started for St. Louis, 5 innings, 8 hits, 3 runs. A little roller wide of third base for Chris Johnson.
Lopez is listed at 6 feet tall. He doesn't look 6 feet tall to me. And, you know, the Astros pitchers really have kind of gone to show that you can have a good, live, strong arm and not be at 6'4", 240. You think about what Roy Oswald and Wandy Rodriguez are able to do, not imposing guys physically, but they just have outstanding arms. A lot of clubs won't draft a pitcher unless he's 6'2" or above.
That's interesting. And you have the Cardinals staff. Carpenter's what, 6'4", and Wainwright 6'8"?
That's right. Wow. And you watch the Florida Marlins pitch, they're bound to bring out 3 or 4 guys that are 6'5" or above. They can out-rebound any staff.
Alan Craig 0 for 2 with a walk and a run scored in this game.
The reason they talk about that is really the assumption would be that their leverage will be better if they're able to throw more downhill. I think the guy that got people thinking about that in baseball was J.R. Richard back in the day. As tall as he was and much leverage as he had, hitters felt as if he was releasing the ball about 3 feet in front of him.
Bill Verdon was his manager. We were chatting in Springfield, Missouri, where the Cardinals have their AA club and where Bill Verdon lives this winter, and he said J.R. was as dominant a pitcher as he ever saw. 1-2 as we join Patty Smith. Patty.
All right, thanks so much. I am down here with Allison Footer, social media with the Houston Astros, and of course worked for Major League Baseball for a long time. And Allison, I want to talk to you about the National League Central. You know, the Cardinals, as always, are kind of right up there as front runners. Just your thoughts on how it plays out.
Well, I think that you can't discount the Cardinals. I mean, every year, even in the years that nobody really picks them, they manage to surprise people. It's all really about staying healthy, and I think that the division is really kind of even. I think it's kind of up for grabs, and you have the Cubs and the Cardinals and the Astros and the Brewers. I mean, you know, you've got a little bit of everything there. And the Astros, they do kind of like flying under the radar a little bit, and nobody really picks them for anything. And they have a lot of confidence coming out of this camp especially. They might surprise some people. It's all going to come down to health. And with Brett Myers, Matt Lindstrom needs to do what he's supposed to be doing. Oswald needs to stay healthy, and I think they can have a pretty good team.
So you've been down here the whole time since camp broke. Just kind of what stands out for you that something that's really impressed you?
Well, they've won a lot of games. And we do joke a lot about last year when they lost 16 in a row, but it has been kind of, I mean, I think they're like 9-2 at home this year. Of course, it's only spring training, but it's better to win these games than not win them. And the pitching, Wandy struggled a little bit today, but the pitching has been really, really pretty solid. They've had a few shutouts, and the guys that are supposed to really be at the top of the rotation and really mainstays in the bullpen, they really perform pretty well. And so they've had a lot of health issues with Tommy Manziel and just some things that have happened lately, but they seem to be pretty minor. And so what stands out to me is just it's coming together as a pretty solid ball club.
Tough to see how the back end of the rotation is going to play out?
It's hard to say now because I watch Brandon Lyon kind of on his own program that's been going on all spring, and I see him on the back fields and on the mounds, and he looks healthy and he feels good. He's just now getting into games, though, and so it's going to be kind of, you have to kind of wait that out. Matt Lindstrom, everyone talks about how he throws 100 miles an hour, which is great, and now you need to sort of see where he's going to fit in. And to have 2 possible closers was great. They've got the back end of the bullpen really locked down for another 3 years, though, and that's pretty important.
All right, great stuff. And I met Matt Lindstrom yesterday. He also speaks Swedish. Pretty interesting little tidbit, guys.
And there's the ground out as Chris Johnson throws over to Van Ostren to retire Ryan Ludwig for a 1-2-3 7th 5-4 St. Louis. Allison Footer is the Senior Director of Social Media with the Astros, and she just had that chat with Patty Smith, Rick Horton. Here's a 5-4 ball game, and this one is different from the pattern of many Astros spring games last year when they had that losing streak she talked about of 16 straight. Their record is 10-7. They have gotten back into this game after trailing 5-0. They've had several games like that this spring. We are in danger of drawing conclusions from spring training games, but they've fought back several times from behind this spring.
Well, as Allison was saying in that interview, and by the way, I'm happy I know what social media is now that I've got on Twitter. I actually know what they're talking about quite a bit now. But for her to talk about, being under the radar is good, but you don't want to lose a lot of games in spring training. No, they don't mean anything on one hand, but I've likened it to being on the driving range when you're going out to play golf. It's the driving range, but if you can't hit one even close to correct, you're not going to get it figured out by the time you get on the course either.
Good analogy. 1 ball and 1 strike to J.R. Tolles leading it off here as the Astros bat in the 7th inning against Jaime Garcia. Jason Michaels is on deck, and Garcia in relief of the starter Kyle Loesch. Goes to a 2-1 count now. Tommy John surgery in 08 for Garcia. Rick alluded to that earlier. Bouncer over him goes out toward the shortstop. Green cuts across. 1 out. So that's why the cautious approach with the team, with the investment and the possibilities that a young left-hander like Garcia can be a part of what's happening at the major league scene, but still not to overload him.
Well, I see a difference in Jaime Garcia from the Garcia that we met a couple of years ago, who had just a phenomenal season. Really started out in A-ball where he was just unhittable, and then he kept kind of going up the ladder. And again, having to deal with that injury, that's a downside. But he looks like he belongs now. He doesn't look scared at all. He's carrying himself like a big leaguer. I would say more confident than he was 2 years ago. And, even though, again, rebounding from an injury, I just think he's a different pitcher than he was in 2008 when he began his big league career with the Redbirds.
Jason Michaels, who's had a nice spring, has a 1-ball 2-strike count. He figures to be the Astros' 4th outfielder, if you like to attach numbers to such things. Jason played very well the last month or so of the season last year. This one in the air to right field. Ludwig moving over. 2 down. Corey Sullivan did not at all hurt his chances to be the 5th outfielder on this club. He had an RBI double earlier today.
Cardinal fans know Michaels because they never seem to be able to get him out except in spring training. No matter what uniform he's wearing, by the way.
Now it's Barnes batting. Barnes, the center fielder, rolls one up the middle. Green with that play makes the accurate throw over to Craig for a quick 7th inning for Garcia, who keeps the Cardinals in the lead by 1, 5-4. In the first inning, the Cardinals got 5, 2 coming home on a double by Ryan Ludwig to center field, scoring Green and Craig to make it 2-0 off Wandy Rodriguez. Then after a hit batsman, David Freese cranked a 3-run homer. It was 5-0 St. Louis with only 1 out in the top half of the first inning. But the Cardinals have not scored since. The Astros started pecking away. They got a 2-out, 2-strike run producing single in the first from Carlos Lee. Pedro Feliz led off the second inning with a home run, number 2 of the spring for him. Keppinger singled, and Keppinger came home on a double by Corey Sullivan. And the Astros trailed 5-3 after 2. Then they got a double from Chris Shelton and a run scored in the 6th inning to make it a 5-4 game as Shelton came home on the ground out by Cook. So it's 5-4 now as the 8th inning comes up with Yadier Molina and a 1-1 count. Molina has a double and he's been hit by a pitch. It's a 1-2 count for Wilton Lopez, pitcher number 3 for the Astros after Rodriguez went 4 and Hervasio worked a couple of scoreless frames. Folks may be just getting home from work right now and picking up on this 5-4 game. Bill Brown, Rick Horton, Patty Smith with you today. This game being televised on both Fox Sports Houston and Fox Sports Midwest. Getting us in a regular season type of feel for these two teams' first meeting in St. Louis for the home opener there, Rick.
Looking forward to that. Great rivalry between these two clubs, and we wonder which of these guys that we're seeing here this afternoon are going to be on those rosters.
That's a real question right now with 2 weeks to go to the opener. Molina down on strikes.
Well, Molina wanted to argue it and then just said, well, maybe it's not worth it. If it was in April, I'd argue. I don't think I went. You draw your own conclusions. Very tough call to make. He kept his hands back, but the bat certainly had some movement towards the ball. I'm not sure he went.
Well, you and JD usually would agree that that would be a strike. Anything to favor the pitcher, right?
Of course. We got no other benefits. We might as well take that one.
Strike to David Freese, who hit that 3-run homer in the first, and then he singled to right in the third. He was robbed by Blum's play up the middle in the 5th inning. And bangs a foul ball there. Jason Castro's taken over as the catcher. J.R. Tolles was 1 for 4 as the starting catcher. Tolles and Castro have been battling for that catching spot on the Astros, with Humberto Quintero being designated as the backup. Castro, a left-handed hitter, a first-round draft choice from Stanford, progressing very quickly through the Astros system. Lopez missing there, and the count is 1-2 on David Freese.
Of course, catching has just as much to do with how you handle the pitcher as it does with what you do with the bat. If you're going to be the everyday guy especially, you're going to have to know your pitchers. You're going to have to know what they're good at. You're going to have to know how to jack them up every once in a while and coddle them. And for a young guy, that's sometimes a challenge to do. Although if you've been a catcher at all, you've had to learn some of that along the line.
Absolutely. And you notice perhaps that time that he moved late over to the outside part of the plate. That's what Castro typically does, setting up a target for his pitcher. And he gets strike 3 there on David Freese. Very good pitch by Lopez.
And a good target from Castro. Gives him that nice low target on the outside corner. And all you got to do is play pitch and catch. Hit my glove.
This is a daunting task, though, for a young catcher like Castro to try to be the opening day starter on a big league club with only 2 years of pro ball, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot to expect. It really is. You've got to get the knowledge over time about what guys can hit and what they can't. You know, the pitchers, really all players, study the other teams more than they used to do. I mean, there's an awful lot of video in the game of baseball. Spring training used to be come down, get in shape, stretch out a bit, go play golf, go fishing, and start the season. Now there's just a lot more to it.
That sounds like a good plan. One hopper to third.
What's wrong with that?
That works. That's 6 straight outs for Wilton Lopez. Cardinals still leading at 5-4. Yesterday was a tough day here with the rain out. Only 1 inning had been played. Today, just perfect. Temperature around 72 degrees. It's sunny, nice breeze coming through, and a good ball game for these fans with some nice food, as you saw. The Astros come up in the bottom of the 8th inning, trailing 5-4. And it's Chris Johnson batting for the first time. He's tied for the Astros club lead in homers this spring with 3. He's second in runs batted in with 11, and he's hit .314. This roller goes to third base where it's backhanded. And Freese takes it over to Craig for out number 1. And Johnson probably will start the season as the everyday third baseman at AAA Round Rock. That would be appearances' sake anyway right now, with Pedro Feliz having signed as a free agent, and Johnson probably ticketed for everyday playing time to be the third baseman in wait, perhaps.
Exactly. At some point, you know, he'll be ready to be the big league third baseman. Last year he got a little bit of the taste of the big leagues and overmatched a bit, just didn't really have a good month, really, but that can happen. You just run into a couple of tough pitchers. He didn't really have enough chance to develop, and maybe put him at third base every day in AAA and give him that opportunity to get those at-bats against some tough pitchers, veteran pitchers, so he's ready for the big leagues the year after.
Exactly. Edwin Masonette got some big league time last year, 69 at bats, a 290 average. He's hitting 400 this spring. He's another of the versatile types. He can even catch in an emergency, but has added outfield to the mix of positions he's played this spring. And he's had 8 hits and 20 at bats, so Masonette's still a possibility to be on that opening day Astro club in 2010.
If you're a big leaguer, it's time for you to start thinking about, or you want to be a big leaguer, think about being versatile.
Garcia catches him looking.
Good off-speed pitch there from Garcia. But there are jobs to be won if you can play multiple positions, because pitchers are at a premium. You want to take 13 pitchers, 12 pitchers at the big league level, as Masonette's frozen on that outside pitch. You may have only 4 guys on your bench.
Drew Myers, the batter, second baseman now. Strike one to Meyer. This is his first time up today. He's hit 250 this spring. 3 hits and 12 at bats. 28 years old, from Charleston, South Carolina. One hopper, backhanded freeze. He juggled it, and the throw is late and high. He had a little problem with the transfer. He made a nice pickup, but then couldn't get it over to the bare hand in time for the out at first.
That's exactly where the problem starts with David Freese. Good backhand, but the transfer from glove to hand, he doesn't get a good handle on it. Doesn't actually get the hand to glove in the right way to get the perfect grip on the baseball, so he had to re-grip. And good speed down the line by Meyer.
Well, looks as if that has gone up on the scoreboard as a hit.
I'm not sure he'd have been out anyway, even with a good throw. Of course, he did bobble it. And why not be generous at spring training?
Absolutely. These guys are trying to make a major league club. Give them a break.
David Freese does not want his 5th error of the spring either.
No. Matt Cada is the pinch hitter here. Cada, switch hitting infielder, has had big league time with a few clubs, including the Astros, Arizona. Cada looks at that one.
Jaime Garcia had retired 8 straight hitters after giving up a leadoff double to Chris Shelton, whose first batter he faced in the 6th inning. Really had pitched very, very well and still pitching well on that infield hit. That breaks his strength.
A little dribbler. Garcia over, makes the throw low on one bounce and still gets the out. As Alan Craig comes up with the play at first base, it's no runs, a hit, and a man stranded. Garcia had to hurry. He spiked the throw so far out in front of first that it worked out, almost as if planned. 5-4 St. Louis. Spring training baseball on Fox Sports Houston and Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by the Home Depot. There's a look at Osceola County Stadium in Kissimmee, Florida, where it's a 5-4 game. Moving to the 9th inning now. The Cardinals got 5 in the first. The Astros pitching staff has been sturdy since then, and now it's pitcher number 4, Shane Lukes, coming in to do the pitching in the 9th inning. Formerly with the Angels, and Lukes will face Joe Mather to lead it off. There's strike one. Interestingly, Jaime Garcia is on deck. There's nobody warming up in the Cardinal bullpen, and that is according to the plan to stretch out both of these pitchers today, Loesch and Garcia.
That's what happened with the rain yesterday. Loesch was supposed to throw yesterday, and so they wanted both starters to get their innings in. So basically sharing the game. We look at the career numbers of the Astros hurler, 39 games, 6.14 ERA in his career. He played with Detroit as well as the Angels in the American League. Another good live arm out of the bullpen. The Astros relievers have done very well this afternoon.
Now, their bullpen figures to be one of the strengths of the club. 1-2 the count. Shane, 30 years old, from Rapid City, South Dakota. They wanted Jose Oquendo to toss them a souvenir.
Gervasio, Lopez, and now Lukes out of the bullpen for the Astros. Cardinals a bunch of zeros since that first inning.
2 perfect frames for Wilton Lopez. Another ground ball. This one goes past Oquendo. Lopez had 3 strikeouts of the 6 straight batters he faced, and the other 3 were ground balls to third base. A very nice outing for Wilton Lopez.
Tell you, that Astros bullpen not fielding well down there in the bullpen. They let that ball get into play, made the left fielder have to go work for it.
Lukes is a guy who's caught some eyes this spring. He got a save against the Yankees a couple of days ago with an inning and 2/3, gave up an unearned run in that one, and he has pitched well. The Astros, like every team, trying to create that type of depth at AAA that they can tap if needed. That's a deep drive to center field. Barnes way back, and that is a long ball. Joe Mather with number 1. And the Cardinals score for the first time since the first inning, leading it 6-4. Second Cardinal home run of the game.
It took Joe Mather 4 at-bats to get his first hit here this afternoon, but worth the wait for him as he pounds that one to center field. Mather trying to make this club as well. And that's the danger of a guy like Mather, who's can maybe go 0 for 3, but then all of a sudden hurt you with the long ball late in the game.
Now Garcia comes up, and there's strike 1. Mather now has driven in 9 for the Redbirds this spring. So Garcia bats, and will take at least a 2-run lead to the bottom of the 9th inning. And he could get the save today for Kyle Loesch. Wouldn't be the way Tony La Russa would normally manage a major league game, but he's getting a chance to see exactly what he wanted to see today from these 2 pitchers. Masonette comes in for the 2-hopper. 1 down.
And Bill, again, you know, that's what you've got to do when rain is a factor, but very soon both managers, both Brad Mills and Tony La Russa, are going to have to start thinking about slotting their relievers in where they're going to pitch during the season. You want them to get used to that feel of getting ready for the 6th inning. That's my inning. 7th inning, 8th inning. Cardinal closer Ryan Franklin has been used early in ball games just to get his innings in, but I think at some point you've got to start working your magic the way you're going to do it once the season starts to get guys used to how you're going to manage. I think Brad Mills in particular, along with the pitching coach Arnsberg, how do I want my guys to get loose? When am I going to call them? How are we going to work out our communication? All those things have to start right about now.
There are going to be a lot of curious media folks as far as how Brad Mills and Brad Arnsberg work it. Who gets the 8th inning? Who gets the 9th? We talked about that earlier. We're not sure.
But and not only when you pitch, but there was a difference from one team to another in playing with a bunch of different teams. You realize that managers even want you to get loose different ways. They may call earlier, or when they get you up, that and if Tommy Lasorda would get you to warm up, that wouldn't necessarily mean you're going in the game. So, but when Whitey Herzog got you to warm up, that meant you were going in to face X player, and you better be ready for him. With Tommy, he just liked to have guys warming up just for fun.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That can wear on a pitcher.
Oh, that was fun, all right. I love Tommy, but you had to understand him and know that he wasn't really necessarily thinking you were going to go in the ballgame.
Well, you sure don't want to waste your stuff in the bullpen then, if that's the plan. 2 outs now, and it's Tyler Green coming up.
Especially if your stuff isn't very good.
Oh, Lukes gave up the homer to Joe Mather, and now tries to get Green. With the Cardinals shooting for win number 7 of the spring. They were 6-10 when this game began. They're playing that other game at home as well, with Boston leading that one 7-6 in the bottom of the 7th inning.
Trying to win 2 games at the same time.
Ooh. Green looks at ball 1. Alan Craig's on deck. This one fielded by Chris Johnson at third. And that will end the top of the 9th inning. 3 ground ball outs for Lukes after the long ball by Mather. Cardinals lead it 6-4. 6-4, St. Louis leading. Colt Sedbrook takes over at second base for Felipe Lopez with the Cardinals up by 2. David Cook leading it off for the Astros. He got an RBI with a ground out in the 6th inning. Walked earlier in the game. Showing bunt here. The Astros trying to get the tying run to the plate potentially, and that's ball 1 from Jaime Garcia. Sedbrook at second. And taking that one. Cook has a count of 1 ball, 1 strike. Van Ostrand is on deck. Castro due up third. Bouncer to shortstop. Tyler Green. 1 out for Garcia, trying to get a 4-inning save for Kyle Loesch.
7 ground balls in the infield, too. He's really kept the left side of the infield busy. 3 ground balls to Tyler Green, and Garcia's looked good here. He doesn't have the strikeout pitch necessarily working today. He has 1 strikeout in his 3+ innings. Had 7 strikeouts in an earlier outing this spring training. But he's not really a strikeout guy. The ground balls, he'll take him.
James Van Ostrand takes, and it's strike 1. He's from British Columbia. A little tap goes foul. Played at AA Corpus Christi last year, hitting .283 with 16 homers, 71 runs batted in. The Astros would love for him to get aboard. For Castro is in the on-deck circle, who would represent then the potential tying run. That foul ball makes it still no balls and 2 strikes. It's been an interesting day as we've seen Wandy Rodriguez struggle, giving up 5 in the first, but then settle down. And Kyle Loesch getting in his work for the Cardinals as he tries to return to his form of a couple of years ago. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Well, the excitement should be running high in St. Louis long about now, Rick.
I would say so. I think when you've got Carpenter and Wainwright at the top of your rotation and Holiday and Ludwig in the middle of your lineup behind Albert, I'd say there's a lot of reason for optimism. And folks are ready after a long, cold winter, frankly, to be talking baseball again.
Yes, they are. Jason Castro comes up for the first time. He's hitting .409 with 9 hits and 22 at-bats. He has 2 runs batted in.
Cardinals have a little action in their pen. Guys just getting their work, I think. Lopez will finish this game here, but both Mott and Boggs were scheduled to maybe throw here if there was any trouble. They're out there getting their work in.
Castro, the Stanford product, takes a look at ball 1. There are a lot of hopes being pinned on this young man, not necessarily only for this year, of course, but well on into the future. He had a very lengthy season last year. He was promoted from Class A to AA and then went abroad to play with the USA national team and then the Arizona Fall League. That's a very long season and a tiring one for a catcher. Held up very well, hitting .300 in the minor leagues last year. Jason, the 10th overall pick in the June 2008 draft. He played for 7 different teams overall last year, including spring training, Class A Lancaster, AA Corpus Christi, the U.S. squad, and the All-Star Futures game where he hit a home run. A lot of learning for Jason Castro from Castro Valley, California.
How do you manage that?
I don't know.
You must have been some kind of prospect, man, to get the hometown named after you.
Before he was born. That's quite a trick. He had .309 at Lancaster. Lancaster known as a real hitter's type environment. Wind is blowing out typically, and it's at altitude. But at Corpus Christi, he hit .293. Fights that one off and hits a bullet over the Astros dugout.
Looks like everybody's okay over there. That's one of those line drives you just worry about hurting somebody. Late swing from Castro. Garcia trying to finish off the Astros here this afternoon.
Castro, the Astro. He's jammed on this one, pops it up, and it's caught. As as Alan Craig comes over from first base to end it, and that's quite an outing for Garcia, who gets the 4-inning save, giving up 2 hits and 1 run in his 4. St. Louis beats Houston today 6-4. The Cardinals ride a 5-run top of the first inning to a 6-4 win over the Astros. We go to Patty Smith on the field. Patty.
Well, thank you. I'm standing by with Tony La Russa. And Tony, we were talking early in the telecast about your style of managing, and it really seems you play your spring training games more like a regular season game than most.
Well, I think as soon as you get to like today, with 2 weeks to go, you have to really try to simulate the conditions as best you can, because opening day is right around the corner. But early on, even when you practice with the other guys, I mean, if you come out here just to see whatever happens, I mean, what do you learn?
So what do you need to learn? You got 2 weeks left. What are your priorities in these final 2 weeks?
Well, we had a little injury thing. You know, we just got Matt back today. I hope. Just want to make sure we get healthy. But, you know, we have some decisions to make, and there are some key guys that are feeling okay but not on time. So we've got 2 weeks to get them on time.
All right. Well, thanks for stopping by, and good luck.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Very interesting afternoon, Patty. Thanks for joining us as the Cardinals beat the Astros today. And they come up with that 5-run first inning and ride that with the pitching of Garcia. Something to talk about for St. Louis fans, Rick.
Yeah, I think it was a crisp played game here this afternoon. A couple of okay starts from Lotion and Rodriguez for the Astros, but I think Jaime Garcia really pushed in another envelope here in towards maybe being that 5th starter for the Cardinals. Really good here this afternoon. Got a lot of ground balls. Excellent outing for Garcia.
And the young third baseman David Freese with the 3-run homer in the first, hit number 1 of the spring for St. Louis as he pushes for that opening day assignment. Final score once again is Cardinals 6, Astros 4. For Rick Horton, Patty Smith, Bill Brown, you've been watching Spring Training Baseball on Fox Sports Houston and Fox Sports Midwest.